When Megan Foster opened that unmarked envelope, she thought it was a mistake. When she walked into that restaurant, she thought she'd find answers. But what waited for her wasn't closure. It was the man who destroyed her 8 years ago, now claiming he vanished to save her life. And the enemies who forced him away? They just found her again. One choice at midnight. One lie that kept her alive. One love that might kill them both. Stay with me until the end. Hit like and drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels.
Yes.
The gallery closing had gone wrong in small, exhausting ways. First, the Castellano couple who'd reserved a private viewing never showed. Then the intern knocked over a sculpture. Not one of the expensive ones, thank God, but enough to require an incident report and 40 minutes on the phone with insurance. By the time Megan locked the front doors at 8:30, her feet ached in her heels and her head pounded with the specific throb that came from smiling through stress for 10 straight hours. She took the subway home in silence, too tired even for music. Her reflection in the dark window looked pale, her dark hair escaping its professional twist in limp strands around her face. 29 and already feeling 40. Her mother's voice echoed in her head from their last phone call. "You work too hard for people who don't appreciate you." Megan had argued, but tonight she wondered if maybe her mother had a point. The apartment building's lobby smelled like someone's burnt dinner and old carpet. Megan collected her mail from the box, bills, a grocery store flyer, something from her dentist, and climbed the 3 flights to her floor. Her keys jangled as she sorted through them, and she was so focused on finding the right one that she almost stepped on the envelope. It lay on her doormat, cream-colored, expensive paper, her name written across the front in elegant black ink. Megan Foster. No address, no stamp. Hand-delivered. She picked it up slowly, looking down the hallway. Empty. The building was quiet except for the muffled sound of a television through Mrs. Chen's door. Inside her apartment, Megan dropped her bag and kicked off her heels before opening the envelope. The cardstock inside was even heavier than the envelope, the kind of quality that came with a price tag. Embossed along the top, La Colline. Her stomach did something strange. La Colline was the restaurant downtown, the one that required reservations months in advance and had been featured in every food magazine that mattered. She'd never been. Could never afford it. Below the name, a time, 10 p.m. Tonight. Below that, a single line that made her hands go cold. Some questions don't have answers. Some do. Come find out which kind yours are. No signature, no explanation, just those words and the time. Megan read it 3 times, her heart beating faster each time. This was insane. This was the kind of thing that happened in movies before someone got murdered. She should throw it away. She should call the police. Instead, she stood there holding it, staring at that single line until the words blurred. Some questions don't have answers, but she had questions. One question, really, that had lived in the back of her mind for 8 years like a splinter she couldn't dig out. Why had Anthony left? They'd had plans. They'd talked about the future. And then one day he was just gone. His apartment cleared out, his phone disconnected, his friends silent or genuinely ignorant. He'd vanished like he'd never existed at all. She'd tried to move on, dated other men, built a career, convinced herself she was over it. But sometimes late at night, that question would surface and she'd lie awake running through possibilities until dawn. This was stupid. This was dangerous. Megan looked at the clock. 9:17 p.m. She should stay home. Pour a glass of wine, take a bath, forget this ever happened. Her feet carried her to the bedroom. She found herself pulling clothes from her closet, the black dress she'd bought for her friend's wedding last year and never worn again. The good heels, the clutch that matched. Her hands moved mechanically, her mind strangely quiet, like she was watching herself from outside her body. 40 minutes later, she stood on the corner waiting for a cab, her coat pulled tight against the October wind. The city lights blurred in the drizzle that had started to fall. She should go back inside. This was insane. A taxi pulled up. The driver looked at her expectantly. La Colline, Megan heard herself say. Downtown. The restaurant glowed like a jewel box in the rain. Megan paid the driver with shaking hands and stood on the sidewalk staring up at the entrance. Through the windows, she could see the warm light, the elegant tables, the beautiful people who belonged in places like this. She didn't belong here. She should leave. But her feet moved forward. The doorman opened the door with a professional smile. Inside, the air smelled like expensive wine and fresh flowers. A hostess approached immediately, her expression perfectly neutral despite Megan's rain-dampened coat and obvious nervousness. "Good evening. Do you have a reservation?" I'm not sure. Someone sent me." Megan held out the invitation, feeling foolish. The hostess's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Recognition, maybe? Or surprise. "Of course. Right this way, please." She led Megan through the main dining room, past tables of people who looked like they summered in the Hamptons and knew which fork to use. Toward the back, through a doorway partially hidden by a velvet curtain. Down a short hallway. To a private room. The hostess opened the door and stepped aside. The room was small, intimate. A single table set for two, candles flickering in the low light. And sitting there exactly as she remembered him, but completely different, was Anthony Rossi. Megan's breath stopped. 8 years. 8 years of wondering, of trying to forget, of convincing herself she'd moved on. And here he was, standing up from the table looking at her with those same dark eyes that used to make her feel like she was the only person in the world. He was broader now, harder. The boy she'd known had been lean, always in motion, energy barely contained. This man had weight to him, presence. His suit probably cost more than her rent. His hair was shorter, styled. But his eyes? Those were the same. "Megan," he said, and his voice cracked the paralysis holding her frozen in the doorway. "What the fuck is this?" The words came out sharper than she'd intended, but she didn't care. 8 years of questions were suddenly pouring into her throat, choking her. "What the actual fuck, Anthony?" The hostess disappeared, closing the door softly behind her. Anthony took a step forward, hands slightly raised like he was approaching a spooked animal. "I know you're angry." "Angry?" Megan laughed, and it sounded slightly hysterical even to her own ears. "You think I'm angry? You disappeared. You left without a word, without an explanation, without anything, and now you send me a mysterious invitation like some kind of dramatic asshole, and you think I'm angry?" "Yes," he said quietly. "I think you're furious. I think you have every right to be. I don't want your permission to feel things." Her voice was rising, but she couldn't stop it. "I want to know why. I want to know what I did wrong. I want to know why I wasn't worth a conversation, a text, a fucking post-it note." "You didn't do anything wrong." "Then why?" The word came out broken. Megan hated how her voice wavered, hated the tears burning behind her eyes. "Why did you leave me?" Anthony's jaw tightened. For a long moment he just looked at her, and she saw something dark and heavy in his expression. Pain, maybe, or guilt. "Because if I stayed," he said finally, "you would have died." The room seemed to tilt. Megan grabbed the back of the chair nearest her, needing something solid. "What?" "Sit down, please." Anthony pulled out the chair across from his. "I'll explain everything, I promise. But please sit down." Every instinct screamed at her to leave, to run, to get as far away from this as possible. But her legs were shaking and the questions were still there, demanding answers. She sat. Anthony returned to his own chair, but he didn't relax. He sat like a man ready to move at any moment, muscles coiled. "Do you remember what I told you I did for work, back then? You said you worked for your uncle's import business." Megan's voice was steadier now, cold. "That was true, partially." He poured wine from the bottle on the table, something that probably cost more than she made in a week. He slid a glass toward her, then took one himself. "My uncle's business was imports, just not the legal kind." The words settled into her like stones. Megan stared at him. "What?" "The Rossi family has been in organized crime for 4 generations. My father ran the East Coast operations. My uncle Michael handled the international connections." Anthony's voice was flat, factual, like he was reading from a report. "I was 21 when you met me. I was supposed to be learning the business, working my way up. Instead, I fell in love with a girl who worked at a coffee shop and painted on weekends." "Don't." The word came out sharp. "Don't romanticize this." "I'm not. I'm telling you the truth." Anthony met her eyes. "You were everything that world wasn't. Clean, good, real. And I was stupid enough to think I could keep you separate from it. That I could have both." Megan's hands were shaking. She set down the wine glass before she dropped it. This isn't real. This is insane. I know how it sounds. Do you? Her voice cracked. Because it sounds like you're telling me you were a criminal, that everything we had was built on lies. Not everything. Anthony leaned forward, intense. What I felt for you, that was real. That was the only real thing in my life. Then why did you leave? The question hung between them. Anthony's expression darkened, and for a moment Megan saw something dangerous flicker across his face. Something that made her remember she was alone in a room with a man who just admitted to being a criminal. Because Victor Castellano found out about you, Anthony said quietly. The name rang a distant bell. Castellano? Like the couple who were supposed to come to the gallery tonight? Anthony's eyes sharpened. What? There was a couple, Castellano. They had a reservation for a private viewing. They never showed. Megan felt suddenly cold. Why? What does that mean? It means they're watching you. Anthony's voice had gone hard. It means I was right to bring you here. It means we're running out of time. Time for what? Anthony, you're not making sense. He stood abruptly, pulling out his phone. His fingers moved quickly across the screen while he spoke. Victor Castellano runs the Castellano family. They've been rivals with the Rossis for decades. 8 years ago, someone leaked information to Victor. He found out about you. He found out that you mattered to me. So? Anthony looked up from his phone, and the expression on his face made Megan's blood run cold. So Victor doesn't take hostages. He doesn't make threats. He just eliminates problems. And you would have been a problem. That's not... Megan stood too, backing away from the table. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to make you understand. Anthony pocketed his phone and moved toward her, but stopped when she flinched. I had 2 choices. I could stay and watch you die, or I could leave and make you irrelevant. Someone who didn't matter to me anymore. Someone not worth the effort of killing. You left to protect me. Megan heard the words come out of her mouth, but they felt surreal. I destroyed you to save you. Anthony's voice was rough. I know what I did. I know how badly I hurt you, but you're alive, Megan. You built a life, a career, friends. You're alive and safe, and that's all that mattered. Until now. The pieces were clicking together in her mind, cold and terrible. You wouldn't contact me unless something changed, unless I was in danger again. Anthony's silence was answer enough. The Castellanos, Megan said slowly. Tonight, they were looking for me. They're looking for leverage. Anthony moved to the window, looking out at the restaurant below. My father died 6 months ago. I took over the family operations. We've been consolidating power, cutting into Castellano territory. Victor's getting desperate. He's digging through old files, old intelligence, looking for weaknesses. And he found me. He found a girl I dated 8 years ago, someone I supposedly cared about. Anthony turned back to her. If he thinks you still matter, if he thinks he can use you against me, he will, and he won't be gentle about it. Megan's legs felt weak. She sank back into the chair, her mind racing. This was insane. This couldn't be happening. She curated art. She paid her bills on time. She had a normal life. Why didn't you warn me? Send a message, something? Because any contact would have confirmed you matter, would have painted a target on you. Anthony crouched down in front of her chair, bringing himself to her eye level. I've had people watching you for 8 years, making sure you were safe. The second Victor's people started asking questions about you, I knew I had to move. So you sent a creepy invitation and brought me here. Megan's voice was bitter. Very romantic. I brought you here because it's neutral ground. Because I have people outside. Because I needed to see you face to face and make sure you understood the danger before... He stopped. His phone was buzzing. He pulled it out, looked at the screen, and went completely still. Before what? Megan demanded. Anthony stood, his expression shifting into something cold and controlled. Before they found out where you live. The words didn't make sense. What? My people just reported activity at your apartment building. 3 men. Professional. They went in through the service entrance 15 minutes ago. Anthony's voice was calm, but Megan could hear the tension underneath. They're in your apartment right now. The room spun. Megan gripped the edge of the table. You're lying. I wish I was. Anthony was already moving, pulling on his coat. We need to go, now. Go where? This is insane. I should call the police. And tell them what? Anthony's eyes were hard. That you suspect someone broke into your apartment, but you don't know for sure because you're not there. By the time they respond, Victor's people will be gone. And they'll know I warned you, which confirms you matter, which makes you a permanent target. So what's your plan? What, hide forever? No. Anthony held out his hand. You come with me. I keep you safe until we neutralize the threat. Then you can go back to your life. Megan stared at his hand like it was a snake. I don't trust you. I know. You lied to me for 2 years. You broke my heart. And now you show up and expect me to just believe everything you're saying? I expect you to be smart enough to see that whether you trust me or not, you're in danger. Anthony's voice was sharp. You think this is a game? You think I'd go through this elaborate setup as some kind of sick joke? Look at me, Megan. She did. And what she saw in his eyes wasn't manipulation or lies. It was fear. Real, genuine fear. They know where you live, Anthony said quietly. They know where you work. They know your routine, your friends, your favorite coffee shop. And if I leave you here, if I walk away and let you go home, you won't make it through the week. Is that what you want? To prove a point? Her throat was tight. I want my life back. Then let me give it to you. Let me fix this. The phone in his hand buzzed again. Anthony glanced down and swore under his breath. They're leaving your building. We need to move now before they realize you're not there. Megan stood on shaking legs. Her whole world had tilted sideways in the space of 30 minutes. Everything she thought she knew was wrong. Everything she'd built, all the safety and normalcy she'd fought for after Anthony left, it was an illusion. And the man who destroyed her was now her only option for survival. If I do this, she said slowly, if I go with you, I want the truth. All of it. No more lies. Okay. And when this is over, you leave me alone. Forever. Something flickered in Anthony's expression. Pain, maybe regret. But he nodded. If that's what you want. It wasn't what she wanted. That was the worst part. Even now, even after everything, part of her still responded to his presence like a compass finding north. But that part of her was stupid and self-destructive, and she couldn't afford to listen to it. Let's go, she said. Anthony led her out through a back hallway she hadn't known existed. They exited into an alley where a black SUV was already waiting, engine running. A man Megan didn't recognize sat in the driver's seat, his expression neutral. This is Marco, Anthony said as he opened the back door for her. He's been watching your building tonight. Megan climbed in, her dress catching on the seat. Anthony slid in beside her, and Marco pulled away from the curb immediately, smooth and fast. Where are we going? Megan asked. Somewhere safe. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give right now. Anthony was texting rapidly on his phone, his jaw tight. We need to make sure we're not followed first. The city slid past the windows. Megan watched the familiar streets give way to neighborhoods she didn't know. Marco drove with the easy confidence of someone who'd done this 1,000 times, making turns that seemed random, but probably weren't. The men in my apartment, Megan said. What were they looking for? Evidence that you matter to me. Photos, letters, anything that shows we had a relationship. Anthony didn't look up from his phone. They'll find your old college stuff if you kept it. Maybe some pictures. Megan's stomach dropped. She had kept things. A box in her closet with photos, ticket stubs, the birthday card he'd given her with the terrible poem inside. She'd told herself she kept it for closure, but she'd never thrown it away. They'll find it, she said quietly. Anthony's hand stilled on his phone. You kept things? I'm not the one who left without looking back. The words came out bitter. Some of us actually felt something. The silence in the car was heavy. Marco's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, but he said nothing. I never looked back because if I did, I wouldn't have been able to keep walking, Anthony said, finally, his voice low. You think this was easy? You think I just forgot about you and moved on? Didn't you? No. The single word was fierce. I thought about you every single day. I checked on you every week. I made sure you were safe, happy, building a life. And it killed me, Megan. It killed me to watch you with other men, to see you smiling at parties I couldn't attend, to know you were right there, and I couldn't. He stopped, jaw clenched. Couldn't what? Couldn't have you. He finally looked at her, and the naked emotion in his eyes made her chest ache. Couldn't fix what I'd broken. Couldn't tell you the truth without putting you in danger. And now? Now you're in danger anyway, so at least I can tell you the truth. Marco turned onto a highway on-ramp, accelerating into the sparse late-night traffic. Megan looked out the window at the city lights fading behind them. Where are we going? She asked again. A house upstate. It's secure, off the grid. We can regroup there, figure out our next move. Anthony pocketed his phone. It'll take about 2 hours to get there. 2 hours in a car with the man who'd broken her heart. 2 hours before she arrived at some secret location with people she didn't know. This was insane. She should demand Marco stop the car, should get out, and take her chances. But the memory of Anthony's expression when he'd told her about the men in her apartment stopped her. That had been real fear. And whatever else Anthony was, liar, criminal, ghost from her past, he was genuinely afraid for her safety. Tell me about your father, she said. You said he died 6 months ago. Anthony's expression closed off immediately. What do you want to know? How he died. What happened? For a long moment, Anthony didn't answer. He looked out the window at the dark highway, his reflection ghostly in the glass. He was killed, Anthony said finally, ambushed on his way home from a meeting. 3 men with automatic weapons. They shot out the tires, killed his driver, put 17 bullets in him. Megan's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. The Castellanos denied involvement. So did every other family on the East Coast. No one claimed responsibility. Anthony's voice was flat, emotionless, which means it was either an inside job or someone new making a play. Either way, it left a power vacuum, and I had to fill it. You didn't want to. It wasn't a question, but Anthony answered anyway. No, I wanted out. I'd been working on legitimate business ventures, trying to separate myself from the family, but when my father died, there was no one else. My Uncle Michael was too old, too sick. My cousins too young or too stupid. It was me or chaos. So you chose to become what you'd been running from. I chose to protect what was mine. Anthony looked at her. Including you, even if you didn't know it. The highway stretched ahead of them, empty and dark. Megan leaned her head against the cool window, exhaustion crashing over her in waves. Her whole life had changed in the space of 2 hours. Everything she thought she knew was built on sand. I hate you, she said quietly. I know. I hate that you're right. I hate that I have to trust you. I hate that you get to swoop in and play hero after you destroyed me. I'm not a hero, Megan. I'm the villain of this story. Anthony's voice was rough. But I'm the villain who'll keep you alive. She turned to look at him. In the dim light from the dashboard, his face was all shadows and sharp angles. A stranger's face. Except for his eyes, which still looked at her the same way they had 8 years ago. Like she was something precious he was terrified of breaking. Don't look at me like that, she said. Like what? Like I'm yours. I'm not. Not anymore. Anthony's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Understood. Megan turned back to the window, but she could feel his gaze on her for a long time after. They drove in silence for the next hour. Marco navigated through increasingly rural areas, the highway giving way to smaller roads, then to barely paved lanes through dark woods. Megan's phone had no signal. She was completely cut off from everything familiar, heading into the unknown with a man who'd just admitted to being a criminal. Smart, Megan. Really smart. Finally, Marco turned onto a gravel driveway that wound through thick trees. The headlights caught a massive iron gate, which swung open silently as they approached. Beyond it, the driveway continued for another quarter mile before a house came into view. Not a house. An estate. Megan stared through the windshield at the sprawling stone mansion illuminated by security lights. It looked like something from a movie. 3 stories, wings spreading out on either side, manicured grounds despite the late season. This is your idea of a safe house? She said. It's secure, Anthony said. 15 acres, all fenced and monitored. Armed guards on the perimeter. Safe room in the basement. Everything we need. Marco pulled up to the front entrance where 2 men in dark suits waited on the steps. They looked professional, alert, dangerous. Anthony got out first, then offered Megan his hand. She ignored it and climbed out on her own, wobbling slightly in her heels on the gravel. One of the suited men approached immediately. "Mr. Rossi, everything's been prepared as you requested." "Thank you, David. This is Megan Foster. She's our priority. Whatever she needs, you provide it." David nodded, his expression neutral. "Of course, sir. Miss Foster, if you'll follow me, I'll show you to your room." "Wait." Megan turned to Anthony. "We need to talk." "In the morning, you're exhausted, you've had a shock. Get some rest. We'll talk over breakfast." "No." She planted her feet. "You promised me the truth. All of it. I'm not waiting until morning." Anthony studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Fine. David, we'll be in the study. Make sure we're not disturbed." "Yes, sir." Anthony led Megan through the massive front doors into an entrance hall that belonged in a museum. Marble floors, crystal chandelier, artwork that was probably original. Her heels clicked on the stone as she followed him down a hallway and into a room lined with bookshelves. The study was smaller than she'd expected, more intimate. Leather chairs, a fireplace already burning, a desk covered with papers and laptops. Anthony shrugged off his coat and poured 2 glasses of bourbon from a crystal decanter. "I don't drink bourbon," Megan said. "You do tonight." He pressed the glass into her hand. "Trust me." She took a sip and immediately regretted it. The liquor burned down her throat, making her eyes water, but the warmth that followed was steadying. Anthony settled into one of the leather chairs, gesturing for her to take the other. Megan perched on the edge of it, her back straight, every muscle tense. "Ask me anything," Anthony said. "I'll tell you the truth." Where to even start? Megan's mind was spinning with questions, each one competing for attention. She took another sip of bourbon, let it burn, and chose the one that hurt most. "Did you ever love me? Or was I just, I don't know, a hobby? A way to feel normal?" Anthony's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes went soft. "I loved you more than I've ever loved anything in my life. You were the only good thing in a world that was rotting from the inside, and that's exactly why I had to let you go." "That doesn't make sense." "It does in my world." Anthony leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Love in my world is a weapon, Megan. It's leverage. It's how people get to you, how they make you weak. My father loved my mother, and when she died of cancer, he almost lost everything because he couldn't function without her. My uncle loved his daughter, and Victor Castellano had her killed to send a message." Megan's breath caught. "Victor killed his daughter?" "My uncle's daughter, my cousin. She was 19. Anthony's voice was flat again, that terrible, emotionless tone. "They made it look like an accident, car crash, but we all knew, and my uncle never recovered. He's been half alive ever since." "That's horrible." "That's the life." Anthony met her eyes. "So when I fell in love with you, when I realized you weren't just some girl I was dating, but someone who mattered, really mattered, I knew I was giving Victor a weapon, and I was right, because he found out about me. Because someone told him about you." Anthony's expression darkened. "Someone inside our organization, someone who wanted to hurt me or test my loyalty, or maybe just cause chaos. I never found out who, but the leak happened, and suddenly Victor knew your name, where you lived, where you worked. He knew everything." Megan's hands were shaking. She set down the bourbon before she spilled it. "How did you find out he knew?" "An intermediary. Someone who plays both sides, sells information. He came to me and said Victor was planning something, that I should get my affairs in order. I knew what that meant. So you left." "I staged a very public, very ugly breakup. Told everyone you meant nothing to me, that you were just convenient. Made sure every rumor, every piece of gossip, painted you as irrelevant." Anthony's hands clenched into fists. "It was the hardest thing I've ever done, and the only thing that saved your life." Megan tried to process this, tried to reconcile the boy she'd loved with this man who'd calculated her survival like a business transaction. "What happened after you left?" she asked. "I disappeared for 6 months. Went to Europe, worked with my uncle's connections there. When I came back, I made sure to be seen with other women, made sure everyone knew I'd moved on. And I watched you from a distance, making sure Victor bought it." "He did?" "Eventually. It took almost a year, but eventually his people stopped watching you. You were just some girl I dated and dumped. Not worth the effort." Anthony reached for his own bourbon, drained it in one swallow. "And you moved on too, started dating that accountant. What was his name?" "Greg." Megan felt a flash of anger. "You don't get to be jealous. You left." "I know. I'm not jealous." He refilled his glass. I was relieved. It meant you were okay, that you were building a life, that my plan had worked. Your plan? Megan stood abruptly, needing to move. She paced to the bookshelves, running her fingers along the spines without seeing the titles. You keep saying that like it justifies everything, like the fact that you had good intentions makes it okay that you destroyed me. It doesn't. The simple agreement stopped her. She turned to look at him. I know it doesn't make it okay, Anthony said quietly. I know I hurt you in ways I can never fix, but I'd do it again, Megan. If it meant keeping you alive, I'd break your heart 1,000 times. The truth of it was in his eyes, raw and unflinching. He meant it. He would hurt her again if he thought it would save her. That's not love, Megan said. That's possession. Maybe. I don't know anymore. Anthony set down his glass and stood, moving to the fireplace. The flames cast dancing shadows across his face. All I know is that for 8 years, I've checked on you every week, made sure you were safe, happy, thriving. And when I saw that the Castellanos were looking for you again, I didn't hesitate. I brought you here because this is the only place I can guarantee your safety. For how long? As long as it takes. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Anthony turned to face her. I don't know how long it'll take to neutralize the threat. Could be days, could be weeks. But I won't let you go back until I know for certain that Victor won't come after you. Megan felt the walls closing in. So I'm a prisoner. You're protected. That's the same thing. No, it's not. Anthony's voice hardened. A prisoner can't leave. You can leave anytime you want, Megan. Walk out that door right now. I won't stop you. But if you do, you're on your own. Victor's people will find you within 48 hours, and I won't be able to help you. It was a choice that wasn't really a choice. Stay here in this gilded cage with the man who'd broken her heart, or go back to her life and wait for killers to find her. I hate this, she said. I know. I hate you. I know that too. But even as she said it, Megan knew it wasn't entirely true. She hated what he'd done, hated the situation, hated the fear that was crawling up her spine. But Anthony himself, the way he looked at her, the pain in his eyes, the raw honesty in his voice, she didn't hate him, and that was somehow worse. I need to sleep, she said abruptly. I can't think anymore. Anthony nodded and moved to the door, opening it. David was waiting outside, professional and patient. Show Miss Foster to the East Wing guest suite, Anthony said. Make sure she has everything she needs. Yes, sir. Megan moved toward the door, but Anthony's voice stopped her. Megan. She looked back. I know this doesn't fix anything, he said quietly, but I'm sorry. For all of it. She wanted to throw his apology back in his face, wanted to tell him it meant nothing, that words couldn't undo what he'd done. Instead, she just nodded and followed David out of the room. The guest suite was ridiculous. Bigger than her entire apartment, with a 4-poster bed that looked like it belonged in a castle, a bathroom with a tub the size of a small pool, and a walk-in closet that already had clothes in it, women's clothes, in her size. Mr. Rossi had items brought in for you, David said. If anything doesn't fit or you need something else, just let me know. Megan stood in the middle of the room, feeling unmoored. This is insane. I imagine it's quite a shock, miss. David's expression remained neutral. Is there anything you need right now? My life back. Beyond that? Despite everything, Megan almost smiled. No, thank you. When David left, Megan locked the door and leaned against it, finally allowing herself to feel the full weight of the night. Her legs gave out and she slid down to the floor, her fancy dress pooling around her. She should cry, should scream, should do something other than sit here on the carpet of a stranger's mansion while her entire world crumbled. But the tears wouldn't come. She just felt numb, hollowed out, like someone had scooped out everything inside her and left only the shell. Her phone buzzed in her clutch. She'd forgotten she even had it. When she pulled it out, there was a single bar of signal and a text from her assistant at the gallery. Hope your mystery dinner was amazing. See you tomorrow, XO. Tomorrow. The gallery would open and Megan wouldn't be there. Her assistant would call, then worry, then eventually call the police when Megan didn't show up for days. Her friends would panic. Her mother would lose her mind. Megan typed out a response. Taking a few personal days, something came up. I'll call you tomorrow. It was a lie. But what else could she say? Sorry, turns out my ex-boyfriend is a crime lord and I'm hiding in his mansion because contract killers are after me. Be back soon. She sent the text and watched it deliver, then turned off her phone. Whatever happened next, she couldn't deal with it tonight. Megan forced herself to stand, to strip off the dress and heels, to wash her face in the enormous bathroom. The face that stared back at her from the mirror looked like a stranger's. Pale, shocked, lost. She found pajamas in the closet, silk, expensive, perfect fit. Anthony had thought of everything, planned for this. Probably had this room ready for weeks, waiting for the moment he'd need to bring her here. The thought should have made her angry. Instead, it just made her tired. Megan climbed into the massive bed and pulled the covers up to her chin. The sheets smelled like lavender and something else, something that reminded her of Anthony. Or maybe she was just imagining it, her traitorous brain inserting him into every thought. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep, tried to shut off the questions that kept circling in her mind like sharks. But sleep didn't come. She lay there in the dark, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the house settling around her, and wondered how the hell she'd ended up here. Wondered what Anthony was doing down the hall. Wondered if he was sleeping or if he was awake too, thinking about her. Wondered if any part of this was real or if she'd wake up tomorrow in her own bed and discover the whole night had been a nightmare. But deep down, she knew better. This was real. The danger was real. And the man who'd broken her heart 8 years ago was now the only thing standing between her and people who wanted her dead. Megan pulled the covers tighter and stared at the ceiling, waiting for morning. Morning came too early, and not early enough. Megan woke to sunlight streaming through windows she didn't recognize in a bed that felt like sleeping on a cloud, wearing silk pajamas that cost more than her monthly grocery budget. For one blissful moment, she thought maybe it had all been a nightmare. Then she remembered Anthony's face across the candlelit table, the men in her apartment, the drive through dark woods to this fortress disguised as a mansion. She sat up, her head pounding. The clock on the nightstand read 9:47 a.m. She'd slept for maybe 4 hours total, the rest of the night spent staring at shadows on the ceiling, running through everything Anthony had told her and trying to find the lies hidden in the truth. A soft knock on the door made her jump. "Miss Foster, I have breakfast for you." A woman's voice, pleasant and professional. Megan wrapped herself in the robe she found draped over a chair, cashmere of course, and opened the door. A woman in her 50s stood there with a tray, her gray hair pulled back in a neat bun, her smile kind. "I'm Rosa," she said. "I manage the household. Mr. Rossi thought you might prefer to eat in your room this morning, but if you'd rather join him in the dining room, here's fine." Megan took the tray, coffee, fruit, pastries that looked homemade. Her stomach growled despite everything. "Thank you." "Of course. There are clothes in the closet, all your size. If you need anything else, just pick up the phone by the bed and dial 0. When Rosa left, Megan set the tray on the small table by the window and looked out at the grounds. In daylight, the estate was even more impressive. Manicured gardens despite the late October chill, a stone path winding through trees just starting to lose their leaves, and in the distance, the fence Anthony had mentioned. Tall, iron, topped with something that might have been decorative scrollwork but was probably cameras. She was in a prison made of money and good taste. Megan forced herself to eat, to drink the coffee that was perfectly prepared even though she'd never told anyone how she liked it. Anthony had probably remembered. He'd remembered everything else. The closet held designer clothes with the tags still on, jeans that fit perfectly, sweaters and soft neutrals, even underwear in her exact size. It should have been thoughtful. Instead, it felt invasive, like Anthony had cataloged every detail about her body and filed it away for future use. She chose the simplest outfit she could find, jeans, a cream sweater, boots that were probably Italian leather, and braided her hair to keep her hands busy. In the mirror, she looked almost normal, like a woman getting ready for a casual Saturday, not someone hiding from contract killers. The laugh that bubbled up was slightly hysterical. Megan pressed her hand over her mouth, forcing it down. She couldn't afford to break, not now. Another knock, this one firmer. Megan opened the door to find David, the security man from last night. "Mr. Rossi requests your presence in his office when you're ready, Miss Foster." "Requests or demands?" David's expression didn't change. "Requests, miss." "And if I'm not ready?" "Then I'm to tell him you'll come when you're ready." At least Anthony was maintaining the illusion that she had a choice. Megan grabbed her phone, still dead, no signal anyway, and followed David through the labyrinth of hallways. The house was even bigger than she'd realized, all high ceilings and expensive art and the kind of quiet that came from thick walls and solid construction. Anthony's office was on the second floor, facing the back of the property. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over a forest that seemed to stretch forever. Anthony stood at those windows, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian. He was dressed more casually than last night. Dark jeans, a gray Henley that showed off shoulders that definitely hadn't come from sitting behind a desk. His hair was damp, like he'd just showered. Megan hated that she noticed, hated the small flutter in her stomach that felt too much like the way she used to feel when he'd show up at her apartment unannounced. He turned when David cleared his throat, and whatever he was saying in Italian cut off abruptly. "I'll call you back," he said, switching to English. Then to David. "Thank you, that's all." When they were alone, Anthony pocketed his phone and gestured to the chairs arranged around a low table. "Did you sleep?" "Not really." Megan sat, perching on the edge of the seat the same way she had last night, ready to bolt. "Did you?" "No." At least he was honest about that. Anthony took the chair across from her, and Megan noticed the dark circles under his eyes, the tight set of his jaw. He looked exhausted and wired at the same time, like he'd been up all night handling crises. "I need to know what is happening," Megan said. "My real life is still out there. I have a job, responsibilities. I can't just disappear." "I know. I've handled it." The casual way he said it made her spine stiffen. "Handled it how?" "I had someone call your gallery this morning. Said you had a family emergency out of state, that you'd be gone for at least 2 weeks. "You what?" Megan's voice rose. "You can't just— Who gave you permission to—" "No one. But it was necessary." Anthony's voice was calm, which only made her angrier. "Your assistant was very understanding. She said to take all the time you need. Because she thinks my family is in crisis. She's probably worried sick. Better worried than dead." The blunt words hit like a slap. Megan stood, needing to move, to do something with the anger coursing through her. "You don't get to make these decisions for me. You don't get to control my life. I'm trying to save your life." "By lying to everyone I know? By isolating me here?" She spun to face him. "This is exactly what you did before, Anthony. You made decisions for me, about me, without ever asking what I wanted. What you wanted was to stay alive and blissfully ignorant. I gave you that." "No, you gave yourself permission to play puppet master with my life." Her hands were shaking. "Do you even hear yourself? You're so convinced you know what's best for me that you can't see how messed up this is." Anthony stood too, his calm cracking. "You want to know what's messed up? Victor Castellano has a file on you 2 inches thick. He knows your mother's address in Connecticut. He knows your best friend Sarah lives in Brooklyn with her husband and their 6-month-old baby. He knows you volunteer at the community center on Thursdays. Should I go on?" The blood drained from Megan's face. "Sarah? He knows about Sarah. He knows about everyone you care about. Everyone who could be used as leverage." Anthony's voice was hard now, all pretense of gentleness gone. "So, yes, I made decisions without asking you, because if I'd called you up and said, 'Hey, remember me, your ex who vanished?' Well, I need you to abandon your life and hide because my criminal enemies might torture your friends to get to me. You would have hung up, or worse, you would have tried to handle it yourself." "You don't know that, don't I?" He moved closer, and Megan had to fight the urge to step back. "Tell me honestly, Megan, if I'd called you yesterday and told you all of this, what would you have done?" She wanted to argue, wanted to say she would have been rational, careful, smart, but he was right. She would have thought he was insane, would have hung up and maybe called the police, or maybe just blocked his number and tried to forget. "That's what I thought," Anthony said quietly when she didn't answer. "So yes, I made the choice for you, and I'd do it again." Megan sank back into the chair, suddenly exhausted. "I can't live like this. I can't just hide here forever while you—" "What? Fight some kind of mob war?" "Not forever. Just until I neutralize the threat." "How?" Anthony returned to his seat, running a hand through his hair. The gesture was so familiar it hurt. "Victor's operation has been struggling since my father died. We've been cutting into his territory, absorbing his lower-level people, disrupting his supply chains. He's desperate, which makes him dangerous. but it also makes him vulnerable. So what's your plan? Kill him? If necessary. Anthony's eyes were cold. But preferably I'll force him to the negotiating table. Make it clear that coming after you costs more than it's worth. And if he doesn't agree, then yes, I'll kill him. The matter-of-fact way he said it made Megan's stomach turn. This wasn't the Anthony she'd known. That Anthony had been passionate, impulsive, alive in a way that made everything feel electric. This man was calculated, controlled, capable of discussing murder like it was a business transaction. "You've killed people before," she said. Not a question. "Yes." "How many?" "Does it matter?" "To me it does." Anthony was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working. 7. Directly. More if you count the orders I've given. 7 people. Megan tried to process that, tried to reconcile it with the boy who used to bring her coffee in bed and read terrible poetry out loud just to make her laugh. "Why did you kill them?" "Because they were trying to kill me, or someone I cared about, or they betrayed the family." Anthony met her eyes. "I'm not a good man, Megan. I've done things that would make you sick, but I've never killed anyone who didn't deserve it, and I've never enjoyed it, if that matters." "I don't know what matters anymore." Megan pressed her hands to her face. "I don't know who you are. I'm the same person I was 8 years ago, just older, more honest about what I am." "No, you're not." She looked at him through her fingers. That Anthony was in love with life. He was restless and passionate, and he made everything feel possible. "You're cold, like something died inside you." Pain flickered across Anthony's face, quick and sharp. "Something did die. The part of me that thought I could have a normal life. That died the day I left you." The words hung between them, heavy with truth. Megan dropped her hands, studying him, really looking at him for the first time since last night's shock had worn off. He was right that he hadn't changed, not fundamentally. The intensity was still there, that focused energy that used to make her feel like she was the center of his universe. But it had been channeled into something harder now, more dangerous. He'd weaponized the parts of himself that used to be passionate and made them lethal. "I don't know if I can forgive you," she said quietly. "I'm not asking you to." "Then what are you asking?" "For time. For a chance to keep you safe, and maybe—" He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "Maybe for you to understand why I did what I did, even if you can't forgive it." Before Megan could respond, Anthony's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression hardened. "What?" Megan asked. "Victor's people hit your apartment again last night. They took the box from your closet. The box with their photos, their memories. Proof that she'd mattered to him." Megan's chest tightened. "So he knows. He knows we had a relationship. He doesn't know if it's still relevant." Anthony was already typing on his phone. "But he'll be testing that theory soon." "How?" "By making a move. Publicly. Something designed to get my attention and see how I react." Anthony stood, pacing to the window. "We need to be ready." "Ready for what?" He turned back to her, and the look in his eyes made her blood run cold. "For him to hurt someone you care about to see if I care." Megan was on her feet instantly. "Sarah, he's going to go after Sarah. Possibly. Or your mother. Or any of a dozen people you're connected to." Anthony was already moving to his desk, pulling up security feeds on multiple monitors. "I've had people watching them since last night, but Victor's smart. If he wants to make a statement, he'll find a way." "Then warn them. Get them somewhere safe." "I can't without confirming you matter. That's the catch-22. Anthony's fingers flew over the keyboard. "If I pull all your people into protective custody, Victor knows for certain you're important to me. If I do nothing, someone gets hurt. Either way, he learns something." "So what do we do?" "We wait, we watch, and we make sure we're ready to respond the second he makes a move." Anthony pulled out his phone again, making a call. "Marco, I need eyes on all of Foster's primary contacts. 24/7 coverage. If anyone so much as looks at them wrong, I want to know immediately." Megan wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the heated room. This was her fault. These people she loved were in danger because of her, because of a relationship she'd had 8 years ago that she'd thought was long dead. "They don't deserve this," she said. "No, they don't." Anthony ended his call. "But neither do you, and you're stuck with it anyway." Because of you. Because of what I am. What my family is. He moved closer, and this time Megan didn't step back. I wish I could change it. I wish I could go back and make different choices. But I can't. All I can do is minimize the damage now. By hiding me here like some kind of princess in a tower. If that's what it takes. Megan looked up at him, at this man who was both familiar and stranger, who claimed to love her enough to destroy her to save her. And what happens when this is over? When Victor's neutralized or dead or whatever? Do I just go back to my life and pretend none of this happened? That's up to you. Is it? Because it seems like you've made all the other decisions. Anthony's jaw tightened. When this is over, I'll walk away, if that's what you want. I'll make sure you're safe, set you up somewhere new if you need it, and I'll never contact you again. You promise? Yes. The certainty in his voice should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like loss. Which was stupid, Megan told herself. She should want him gone. Should want to go back to her normal life and forget any of this ever happened. But a treacherous part of her, the part that had kept that box of memories for 8 years, whispered that maybe normal wasn't what she wanted anymore. The phone on Anthony's desk rang. He grabbed it immediately. Talk to me. His expression shifted as he listened, going from tense to dangerous. When? How many? No, don't engage. Stay on them. Report every movement. I'm on my way. He hung up and looked at Megan. Get your coat. We need to go. Go where? What happened? Victor's people are outside your mother's house in Connecticut. 3 cars, at least 6 men. Anthony was already moving, grabbing keys and a jacket. They're just watching for now, but that'll change. We need to get her out. Megan's heart stopped. My mother? Anthony, she doesn't know anything about this. She's leverage, and Victor will use her if we give him the chance. Anthony opened a safe hidden behind a painting, pulling out a handgun that he checked with practiced efficiency before tucking it into his waistband. I have a team moving into position, but I want to be there. Make sure she's extracted safely. I'm coming with you. No. She's my mother. Which is exactly why you're staying here. Anthony's voice was firm. If Victor's people see you, it confirms everything. You stay here under guard where I know you're safe. I'm not letting you do this alone. I'm not alone. I have a team. He moved to the door, but Megan blocked his path. Anthony, please, I can't just sit here while my mother's in danger. For a moment, she saw him waver, saw the conflict in his eyes between keeping her safe and giving her what she needed. Then his expression hardened again. David will stay with you. Rosa will get you anything you need. I'll call as soon as your mother's secure. He tried to move past her, but Megan grabbed his arm. If anything happens to her, it won't. He covered her hand with his, and the touch sent electricity through her despite everything. I promise you, Megan, I will keep her safe. Then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a finality that made her want to scream. Megan stood there, frozen, listening to his footsteps recede down the hallway. Then she was moving, running to the window just in time to see Anthony climb into an SUV with 3 other men. The vehicle tore down the driveway, disappearing into the trees. Miss Foster? David appeared in the doorway. Mr. Rossi asked me to stay with you. My mother, Megan said, her voice shaking. He's going to get my mother. Mr. Rossi is very good at what he does. She'll be safe. You don't know that. I do, actually. David's expression softened slightly. I've worked for him for 5 years. I've never seen him fail to protect someone he cares about. And the people he doesn't care about? David didn't answer that, which was answer enough. Megan sank into Anthony's desk chair, her legs shaking too badly to hold her. Her mother. Her sweet, oblivious mother, who thought Megan's biggest problem was working too hard. Who had no idea her daughter was caught up in some criminal war because of a boyfriend from almost a decade ago. The minutes crawled by with agonizing slowness. Megan stared at the monitors on Anthony's desk, but they showed only the grounds of the estate, the perimeter fence, the empty driveway. Nothing helpful. Nothing that told her what was happening 2 hours away in Connecticut. She pulled out her phone without thinking, then remembered it was useless. No signal. And even if she could call her mother, what would she say? Hi, Mom. Don't panic, but there are probably mobsters outside your house. Just sit tight while my criminal ex-boyfriend sends his goons to rescue you. A laugh bubbled up, slightly hysterical. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be her life. Miss Foster, can I get you anything? David asked. Water? Coffee? A time machine would be great. Unfortunately, that's outside my skill set. Despite everything, Megan almost smiled. What exactly is your skill set, David? Security, protection, making sure people stay alive even when other people want them dead. And you're good at it? Still here, aren't I? Megan looked at him, really looked. He was probably in his 40s, fit in that compact, dangerous way that suggested military training. His suit hid it well, but she could see the outline of a weapon at his hip. How many people had he killed for Anthony? How many times had he done exactly what he was doing now, babysitting someone while his boss handled the messy work? How did you end up working for Anthony? She asked. David hesitated, then seemed to decide there was no harm in answering. I was Marines, did 3 tours overseas. When I got out, let's say I was struggling to adjust. Mr. Rossi's uncle found me, offered me a job. Security work, nothing illegal. It was good money, and it was what I knew how to do. But you knew what the family was. Yes. And that didn't bother you. David considered this. I've seen enough of the world to know that legal and moral aren't always the same thing. The Rossi family has rules, codes, they protect their own. I've worked for governments that couldn't say the same. It was a depressing kind of logic, but Megan understood it. The world wasn't black and white. Sometimes it was just varying shades of gray, and you picked the gray you could live with. An hour passed, then 2. Megan paced the office until David gently suggested she might be more comfortable in the library, which had better seating and fewer reminders of who Anthony was. She followed him through the mansion to a room that was all floor-to-ceiling books and leather furniture, and the kind of quiet that felt like a physical presence. I'll be right outside, David said. If you need anything, I know, dial 0. Megan tried to smile. Thank you. When she was alone, Megan pulled a book off the shelf without looking at the title and tried to read. The words swam in front of her eyes. Meaningless. Her mind kept playing out scenarios. Her mother being dragged from her house, gunfights in quiet suburban streets, Anthony lying in a pool of blood because he'd tried to protect someone who shouldn't have been his problem. Her phone buzzed. Megan grabbed it, hope surging, but there was still no signal, just a notification that the battery was at 15%. She'd forgotten to charge it last night. Stupid. She was about to set it down when it buzzed again. And again. Then the signal bars flickered, just for a second, showing 1 bar. Megan stood, holding the phone up, moving around the library trying to catch that bar again. There, by the window. Weak, but there. A text came through, delayed. Where are you? Your boss said family emergency, but you're not at your mom's. Getting worried. Sarah. Then another. Megan, seriously, call me. This isn't like you. And another. If I don't hear from you by tonight, I'm filing a missing persons report. Megan's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She should respond. Should tell Sarah she was fine, just dealing with some stuff. Nothing to worry about. But what could she say that wouldn't make things worse? The door opened and David appeared. Miss Foster, I need you to step away from the window. What? Why? Now please. His hand was on his weapon. Megan backed away from the window just as she heard it, the distant sound of helicopters. Multiple. Getting closer. What's happening? She asked. David was on his radio, speaking in clipped tones. We have incoming aircraft, origin unknown. Get the house on lockdown. Move Miss Foster to the safe room. I'm not going to a safe room until someone tells me what's going on. But David was already moving, his hand on her arm, pulling her toward the door. Protocol, Miss Foster. When there's a potential threat, you go to the secure location. No arguments. Megan tried to pull away, but his grip was firm without being painful. He led her through the hallways at a near run, down a staircase she hadn't known existed, into what looked like a wine cellar but was actually something much more serious. The safe room was behind a heavy steel door that looked like it belonged in a bank vault. Inside was a small space with monitors, supplies, and enough weapons to outfit a small army. Stay here, David said. Don't open this door for anyone except me or Mr. Rossi. You understand? David, what's happening? Is it Victor's people? I don't know yet, but until I do, you stay locked down. He showed her how to work the door mechanism from the inside. If something happens to me, if you hear gunfire, you wait 2 hours and then you use the tunnel. He pointed to what looked like a wine rack, but apparently swung open. It comes out a 1/4 mile from the house. There's a car waiting with keys in it. You drive south until you hit the interstate, then you call this number. He pressed a card into her hand. They'll know what to do. David, 2 hours. Not before. You understand? Megan nodded, her throat tight. David stepped back and the vault door swung shut with a sound like the end of the world. Megan was alone in the safe room, the walls pressing in, the monitors showing different angles of the estate grounds. On one screen, she could see the helicopters now, 3 of them, black, unmarked, circling the property like sharks. This was insane. This was a movie. This couldn't be her actual life. But the monitors were real. The weapons on the wall were real. The fear coursing through her veins was real. Megan sank into the chair in front of the monitors and watched the helicopters land on the front lawn. Men in tactical gear poured out, moving with military precision, not toward the house, toward the perimeter. A voice crackled over a speaker she hadn't noticed. Stand down, I repeat, stand down. Friendly forces. Friendly forces? Megan leaned closer to the monitor, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. One of the tactical team members pulled off his helmet, and even through the grainy feed, Megan recognized him. Anthony. He'd come back. But why in helicopters? Why with a tactical team? The speaker crackled again, and this time it was Anthony's voice. Megan, if you're in the safe room, you can come out. It's over. Your mother's secure. Megan stared at the monitor, trying to process this. He'd gotten her mother. He was back. It was over. Her hand shook as she worked the door mechanism. The vault swung open, and David was there, looking relieved. False alarm, he said. Mr. Rossi's team. They brought your mother here. Here? My mother is here? In the main house. Mr. Rossi thought it was safest. Megan pushed past him, running through the hallways, up the stairs, following the sound of voices. She burst into the main foyer to find Anthony surrounded by his tactical team, all of them armed to the teeth, and standing in the middle of them, looking completely bewildered, was her mother. Mom! Carol Foster turned, her face going from confused to relieved in an instant. Megan, what on earth is going on? These men showed up at my house and said there was an emergency and I needed to come with them right now, and I tried to call you, but you didn't answer, and… Megan wrapped her mother in a hug, cutting off the stream of words. Carol was solid and real and here, and the relief was so overwhelming Megan's knees almost buckled. I'm okay, Mom. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Someone want to tell me what's happening? Carol pulled back, looking between Megan and Anthony. Then her eyes widened. Anthony Rossi? Is that you? Anthony had the grace to look uncomfortable. Hello, Mrs. Foster. You? Carol's voice went sharp. You're the one who broke my daughter's heart 8 years ago, and now you show up with commandos and kidnap me from my house? Mom, it's not… I didn't kidnap you, ma'am. I extracted you from a dangerous situation. Anthony's voice was respectful but firm. There were men watching your house, men who work for people who would have hurt you to get to me. I couldn't let that happen. Carol looked at her daughter. Megan Louise Foster, you tell me right now what's going on. The use of her full name, the tone that meant she was in serious trouble, would have been funny under different circumstances. Megan took a deep breath. It's complicated, Mom. I gathered that from the helicopters. Carol's eyes were sharp, missing nothing. Start explaining. So Megan did. She told her mother everything. Anthony's reappearance, his confession about the criminal world, the danger from the Castellanos, the reason she was here. Carol listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from anger to shock to something harder to read. When Megan finished, Carol was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned to Anthony. You left my daughter to protect her. Yes, ma'am. And now you've dragged her back into this mess. I had no choice. If I'd left her unprotected, she would have been killed. I understand. Carol's voice was cold. What I don't understand is why you thought you had the right to make these decisions for her. Either time. Anthony met her gaze steadily. I don't have the right. I just have the ability. And I'd rather she hate me and be alive than love me and be dead. Noble. Carol's tone said it was anything but. And what happens when this is over? You disappear again? Break her heart again? If that's what she wants. What about what you want? The question seemed to catch Anthony off guard. He looked at Megan, and something raw and unguarded crossed his face before he could hide it. What I want doesn't matter. That's a coward's answer. Carol crossed her arms. You want to know what I think? I think you're scared. I think you loved my daughter so much it terrified you. And when you had an excuse to run, you took it. And now you're using this whole protection thing as a way to keep her at arm's length because you're still terrified. Mom, Megan said, mortified, but Anthony wasn't looking away. You might be right. The admission hung in the air. Carol studied him for another long moment, then sighed. I need a drink, and probably a bed. And then tomorrow, you're going to explain to me exactly how you plan to end this threat so my daughter can have her life back. Yes, ma'am. Anthony gestured to Rosa, who'd appeared in the doorway. Rosa will show you to a guest room. Anything you need? I know. Dial 0. Carol looked at her daughter. You and I are going to have a very long conversation tomorrow. I know, Mom. Carol hugged her again, fierce and quick, then followed Rosa out of the foyer. The tactical team had already dispersed, leaving just Megan and Anthony in the massive space. Your mother's terrifying, Anthony said. She raised me alone after my father died. She had to be. Megan crossed her arms, suddenly exhausted again. Thank you. For getting her out safely. That's what I promised. I know, but she trailed off, not sure how to articulate what she was feeling. Gratitude and resentment tangled together, impossible to separate. Anthony moved closer, and Megan saw the exhaustion in his face now, the strain of the last few hours. There was a moment when I thought we wouldn't make it in time. Victor's people were moving in, getting ready to knock on her door. If we'd been 5 minutes later, but you weren't. No. He looked at her and his eyes were haunted. But I will be eventually. That's how this works. I can't save everyone. I can't stop every threat. Sooner or later, I'm going to be 5 minutes too late, and someone's going to die because of me. The defeat in his voice caught Megan off guard. This wasn't the controlled, confident man who'd laid out his plans like they were certainties. This was someone who was tired, scared, and very aware of his limitations. Is that what happened to your father? She asked quietly. You were too late? Anthony's jaw clenched. I wasn't even there. I was in Europe handling a deal. He called me that morning, said he needed to talk about something important. I told him I'd call him back after my meeting. His voice went flat. He was dead before I got out of the conference room. Anthony, don't. Don't tell me it's not my fault. I know the logic. I know I couldn't have predicted it, couldn't have stopped it even if I'd been there. But he called me, and I was too busy to answer, and now he's gone. Megan understood now why he'd moved so fast when he'd learned about the threat to her, why he'd orchestrated this whole extraction with such urgency. He was trying to make up for being 5 minutes too late once before. Your mother was right, Anthony said. I am a coward. I'm terrified of failing you the way I failed him. So don't fail me. The words came out before Megan could think them through. Stay, fight, do whatever you have to do to end this threat, and then what? She didn't know. Didn't know what she wanted beyond the immediate need to survive this. Didn't know if she could forgive him or if she even wanted to try. Then we figure it out, she said finally. Anthony looked at her like she'd offered him something precious and breakable. You mean that? I don't know. Maybe. Ask me again when people aren't actively trying to kill me. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Fair enough. They stood there as the foyer, the space between them charged with everything they weren't saying. Megan thought about her mother's accusation, that Anthony was using protection as an excuse to keep her at arm's length. And maybe it was true. Maybe he was just as scared of this as she was. But right now, with her mother safe upstairs and the immediate crisis averted, Megan was too tired to analyze it, too tired to fight. I need to check on my mother, she said. Of course. Anthony stepped back, giving her space. Get some rest. Tomorrow we'll talk about next steps. Megan nodded and headed for the stairs. But at the landing, she looked back. Anthony was still standing there, watching her like he was memorizing the sight, like he thought it might be the last time. Anthony? Yeah? Thank you for saving her. His expression softened. Always. The word carried weight, a promise and a confession wrapped together. Megan held his gaze for another moment, then climbed the stairs to find her mother. Whatever happened next, whatever threats were still coming, at least for tonight they were all safe under the same roof. It would have to be enough. Megan found her mother standing at the window of the guest suite, still wearing her cardigan and sensible shoes, looking out at the darkening grounds like she was trying to make sense of a world that had tilted sideways. "Mom?" Carol turned, and the expression on her face was complex, worry and anger, and something that might have been fear all tangled together. "Tell me the truth, Megan. All of it. Not the sanitized version you gave me downstairs with that boy watching." Megan closed the door and leaned against it. "He's not a boy anymore. No, he's a man with helicopters and guns who just upended both our lives." Carol sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded in her lap in that way she had when she was trying to stay calm. "How long have you known he was back?" "Since last night." "Last night. And you didn't call me?" "I didn't know you were in danger until this morning, and by then Anthony was already moving to get you out." Megan crossed the room and sat beside her mother. "I'm sorry. For all of this. You shouldn't be involved. I'm your mother. I'm involved in everything whether you want me to be or not." Carol's voice softened. "That boy broke your heart, Megan. It took you 2 years to stop crying yourself to sleep. 2 years. And now he shows up and you're just, what, trusting him? I don't trust him. I don't even know if I like him anymore." Megan picked at a loose thread on the expensive bedspread. "But he's right about the danger. Those men outside your house, they weren't there by accident. How do you know Anthony didn't arrange that himself to scare you into coming here?" The question hit harder than Megan expected because she'd thought the same thing in darker moments. "Because he looked terrified when he told me. Real terror, Mom. Not the manufactured kind." Carol was quiet for a moment. "He still loves you, you know that, right?" "He left me. To save you, apparently. That doesn't make it hurt less." "No." Carol took her daughter's hand. "But it does complicate things, doesn't it? Easier to hate someone when they're just a selfish bastard. Harder when they're a selfish bastard who walked away to keep you alive." Megan laughed despite herself, the sound wet. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You just never listened." Carol squeezed her hand. "What are you going to do when this is over?" "I don't know. Go back to my life, I guess. Pretend none of this happened." "Can you?" That was the question, wasn't it? Could she go back to curating art and drinking wine with Sarah and pretending she didn't know what it felt like to be the center of Anthony Rossi's universe again? Could she unknow the truth about why he'd left, about the danger he'd lived with, about the choices he'd made? "I have to," Megan said. "Because the alternative is staying in this world, and I'm not built for this, Mom. I'm not built for guns and safe rooms and people who solve problems by killing them." "Maybe not," Carol said, "but you're stronger than you think. You always have been." A soft knock interrupted them. Rosa appeared in the doorway with a tray. "I thought you might like some tea, Mrs. Foster, and there's dinner if you're hungry." "Thank you." Carol accepted the tea with a grateful smile. When Rosa left, she took a sip and made a face. "Good grief, even the tea here is expensive." Megan found herself smiling. Trust her mother to find the absurdity in tragedy. They talked for another hour, Carol asking careful questions about the last 2 days, Megan answering as honestly as she could. It felt good to talk to someone who knew her, really knew her, who could see through the brave face she was trying to maintain. Finally, Carol yawned, covering her mouth. "I should sleep. This has been the strangest day of my life, and I've had some strange days." "I'll let you rest." Megan stood, but her mother caught her hand. "Megan, be careful. With Anthony, I mean. He may have good reasons for what he did, but that doesn't mean he won't hurt you again. Maybe not on purpose, but people like that, people in that world, they leave damage wherever they go." "I know, Mom." After her mother was settled, Megan wandered the hallways of the mansion, restless and unable to face the emptiness of her own room. The house was quiet now, most of Anthony's team having dispersed to wherever they went when they weren't rescuing people from mobsters. She found herself drawn back toward his office, not sure what she was looking for. Answers, maybe, or just distraction. The door was ajar, light spilling into the hallway. Megan hesitated, then pushed it open. Anthony sat at his desk, still in the same clothes from earlier, surrounded by papers and laptops. He looked up when she entered, surprise flickering across his face. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Too much to process." Megan gestured to the papers. "What's all this?" "Victor's operations. Financial records, supply chains, personnel files, looking for weaknesses. Finding any? A few. Anthony leaned back in his chair, scrubbing a hand over his face. The gesture revealed exhaustion he'd been hiding earlier. He's overextended, trying to cover too much territory with too few people. His crew's loyal, but they're not deep. If I can flip a few key players, his whole structure collapses. And then what? You take over his territory? Something like that. Anthony watched her carefully, like he was trying to gauge her reaction. Does that bother you? I don't know. Should it? Probably. I'm sitting here planning how to dismantle a man's criminal empire so I can absorb the pieces. Not exactly heroic. Megan moved into the room, drawn despite herself to the monitors showing surveillance feeds. My mother thinks you're using this as an excuse to keep me close. Your mother's perceptive. So it's true. Anthony was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. I'm using this to keep you alive. If that also means you're close, then yes, I'm not complaining about the side benefit. That's not an answer. It's the only honest one I have. He stood, moving to where she stood by the monitors. You want me to say I orchestrated this whole thing just to see you again? I didn't. The threat's real, Megan, but am I glad I get to be near you, even under these circumstances? Yeah, I am. The admission should have made her angry. Instead, it just made her tired. This is so messed up. I know. We can't just pick up where we left off. Too much has happened. I know that too. Then what do you want from me? Anthony looked at her, really looked, and the naked longing in his eyes made her breath catch. I want to keep you safe. I want to fix the mess I made. And I want you to not hate me, even though I probably don't deserve that. That's all? No. His voice dropped. But the rest isn't fair to ask for. Megan knew she should leave, should go back to her room and put distance between herself and this man who'd hurt her so badly. But her feet stayed planted, her body angled toward his like a compass finding north. Ask anyway, she said. Anthony's eyes darkened. Don't. Why not? Because if I tell you what I really want, it'll make everything harder. For both of us. Maybe I want things to be harder. Maybe easy hasn't been working out so well. The space between them felt charged, electric. Anthony took a step closer, close enough that Megan could smell his cologne, that familiar scent that brought back memories of lazy Sunday mornings and stolen kisses. I want time back, he said quietly. I want to undo the last 8 years and make different choices. I want to wake up next to you and not feel like I'm going to get you killed just by existing. I want to take you to dinner without checking for exits and armed guards. I want normal, Megan. And we'll never have that. Maybe normal's overrated. You don't mean that. Don't tell me what I mean. The words came out sharper than intended. You've spent 8 years deciding what I can handle, what I need, what's best for me. Maybe for once, you could let me decide. And what do you decide? Megan didn't have an answer. Her mind was a mess of contradictions. Anger and attraction, hurt and hope, fear and something dangerously close to want. She should walk away, should protect herself the way Anthony claimed he'd been protecting her. Instead, she closed the distance between them and kissed him. For a heartbeat, Anthony went completely still, shocked. Then his hands were in her hair, and he was kissing her back with 8 years of pent-up hunger and regret. Megan's hands found his chest, felt his heart racing under her palms, and the familiarity of it was devastating. This was wrong. This was stupid. This was exactly what she shouldn't be doing. She didn't care. Anthony pulled back first, breathing hard. Megan, don't. Don't analyze it or tell me all the reasons this is a bad idea. I already know them. She could feel tears burning behind her eyes and hated herself for it. I just needed to know if it was still there. If what we had was real or if I'd imagined it. It was real. His hands were still in her hair, gentle now. It's still real. That's the problem. Why is that a problem? Because you deserve better than this. Better than me. Anthony's voice was rough. You deserve someone who can give you a normal life. Someone who doesn't come with a body count and enemies who want to hurt you. What if I don't want normal? You do. You just don't know it yet. He let her go, stepping back, and the loss of contact felt like grief. When this is over, when you're safe, and you can go back to your gallery and your friends and your life. You'll remember why you built that life in the first place. And I'll let you go. You keep saying that like it's noble, like you're doing me a favor. Aren't I? Megan wanted to hit him, wanted to scream, wanted to kiss him again just to prove he was wrong. But the look in his eyes stopped her. That mix of love and resignation that said he'd already made his choice, already decided how this story ended. "You're a coward," she said, echoing her mother's words. "You're too scared to fight for what you want, so you're calling it protection and pretending it's heroic. Maybe, but at least you'll be alive to hate me for it." The finality in his voice broke something in her. Megan turned and walked out of the office before the tears could fall, before she could say something she couldn't take back. She made it to her room before the sobs hit, collapsed on the ridiculous expensive bed, and cried into silk pillows, hating herself for still wanting him, hating him for making her want him, hating the whole impossible situation. When the tears finally stopped, she felt hollowed out, empty. Her phone sat on the nightstand, dead now. Her old life felt like it belonged to someone else. And the man downstairs was keeping her safe while simultaneously breaking her heart all over again. Megan must have fallen asleep eventually because she woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and someone knocking on her door. "Miss Foster? Mr. Rossi would like to see you in the dining room." It was Rosa's voice, gentle and professional. Megan dragged herself upright, feeling like she'd been hit by a truck. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her hair a mess. She looked exactly how she felt. She showered and dressed mechanically, choosing jeans and a sweater because they required no thought. When she made it downstairs, she found Anthony, her mother, and 3 men she didn't recognize sitting around a massive dining table covered with breakfast food. Anthony stood when she entered. "Megan, thank you for joining us." His tone was formal, professional, like last night hadn't happened, like he hadn't kissed her like she was oxygen and he was drowning. Megan took a seat next to her mother, who gave her a concerned look but said nothing. "These are my advisors," Anthony said, gesturing to the 3 men. "Marco you've met. This is Vincent, my uncle's former right hand, and Paul, who handles our legal operations." The men nodded. Vincent was older, 60s maybe, with gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Paul looked like a lawyer. Expensive suit, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of face that could convince a jury of anything. "We've been strategizing," Anthony continued, "and we have a plan to neutralize the Castellano threat." "I'm listening," Megan said. Vincent leaned forward. "Victor's been making moves, yes, but they're desperate moves. He's bleeding money, losing territory. His crew's getting nervous. We've identified 3 of his top lieutenants who might be willing to flip." "Flip meaning what exactly?" Carol asked. "Betray him?" "Essentially, yes." Paul adjusted his glasses. "We offer them better terms, protection, and a place in the new structure. In exchange, they provide intel and step aside when we make our move on Victor's remaining assets." "And what happens to Victor?" Megan asked, though she already knew the answer. The men exchanged glances. Anthony was the one who spoke. "That depends on whether he's smart enough to negotiate his own exit." "But you don't think he will be?" "No. Victor's old school. He'll see negotiation as weakness. He'll fight until someone stops him permanently." "Meaning you'll kill him," Megan said it flatly, watching Anthony's face. "If it comes to that." Carol set down her coffee cup with a sharp click. "And you're telling us this why? To prepare us? To get our blessing?" "To be transparent," Anthony said. "You asked for honesty. This is what honest looks like in my world." "Your world is ugly," Carol said. "Yes, ma'am, it is." The simple agreement seemed to surprise Carol. She studied Anthony for a moment, then sighed. "How long will this take?" "If the flips go smoothly, a week, maybe 2, we're moving fast to minimize exposure." Vincent pulled out a tablet, showing what looked like organizational charts. "We've already made contact with 2 of the 3 targets. They're interested, but cautious. We need to move before Victor figures out what we're doing." "And in the meantime?" Megan asked. "In the meantime, you both stay here where it's secure," Anthony said. "I know it's not ideal." "It's a prison," Megan interrupted. "It's protection." "Same thing." Anthony's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Instead, he looked at Vincent. "Show them the other option." Vincent tapped the tablet, bringing up what looked like floor plans. "We have a secondary location, an apartment in the city, high security building, 24th floor. If you'd prefer to be closer to familiar surroundings, no. Anthony's voice was sharp. That's not an option anymore. Anthony, I said we'd discuss it. Now I'm saying no. It's too exposed. Vincent looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Anthony's expression stopped him. The room fell silent, tension crackling like static. What changed? Megan asked quietly. Anthony met her eyes, and she saw worry there, real and raw. Victor knows about the apartment. One of his people spotted our scout checking it out. If we'd moved you there, you'd have been compromised within hours. The implications settled over the table like ice water. They were running out of options, out of safe places. Victor was adapting, learning, getting closer. So we stay here, Carol said. For how long? Until it's done, Anthony said, however long that takes. After breakfast, the men dispersed to handle various aspects of the operation. Megan watched them go, these criminals in expensive suits who spoke about betrayal and murder like it was business, which she supposed it was. Her mother excused herself to call a friend who was supposed to be checking on her house. Megan was left alone in the dining room, staring at the remains of breakfast she hadn't been able to eat. Anthony appeared in the doorway. Can we talk? About what? You've made your position pretty clear. About last night. About what happened. Megan stood, needing to move. Nothing happened. I kissed you. You kissed me back. You gave me the "you deserve better" speech. End of story. Megan? Don't! She held up a hand. You were right, okay? It was a mistake. I was emotional and confused, and I shouldn't have done it. Can we just pretend it never happened? Can you? No. She couldn't. The memory of his hands in her hair, the familiar taste of him, the way her body had remembered his like coming home, none of that was going away. But she'd be damned if she admitted it. Yes, she lied. Anthony moved closer, and Megan's traitorous heart started racing. I can't. I've tried to forget you for 8 years, and I can't. Last night just proved it. Then what do you want from me? Because you keep saying I deserve better, that we can't have a future, but then you look at me like that and I don't know what to think. I want to keep you safe. That's not enough. The words burst out louder than she intended, echoing in the empty dining room. Anthony flinched, and Megan realized David had appeared in the hallway, alert to the raised voices. It's fine, Anthony told him. Give us a minute. When they were alone again, Megan lowered her voice. Keeping me safe isn't the same as caring about me. It's not the same as wanting me. And I can't do this, can't be here with you, if all I am is another problem you need to solve. You're not a problem. Then what am I? Anthony looked at her, and the war playing out on his face was almost painful to watch. Want and duty, love and fear, all fighting for dominance. You're everything I can't have, he said finally. Everything I want and can't keep. You're the life I could have lived if I'd been someone different. But you're not someone different. You're you, and I'm me. And maybe that's enough. It's not. It can't be. Megan felt something inside her crack. Fine, you're right. It can't be. So let's just focus on surviving this and going our separate ways. She started to walk past him, but Anthony caught her arm. I'm trying to do the right thing here. The right thing for who? Because it's sure as hell not right for me. You don't know what you're saying. Yes, I do. You're the one who's confused. Megan pulled her arm free. You think keeping me at arm's length is noble, but really you're just scared. Scared that if you let yourself have this, have us, something will go wrong and you'll lose me the way you lost your father. Anthony went pale. Don't. Why not? It's the truth, isn't it? You're so terrified of failing that you won't even try. You think I'm not trying? His voice rose. I'm tearing apart a criminal empire to keep you safe. I'm making enemies of people who could kill us both. I'm risking everything, except yourself. You're risking everything except actually being vulnerable with me. The accusation hit home. Megan could see it in the way Anthony's expression closed off, walls slamming down. Believe what you want, he said coldly, but I know what I'm doing. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you're repeating the same mistake you made 8 years ago, deciding what's best for me without asking what I want. And what do you want, Megan? Really want? The question hung between them, loaded. Megan opened her mouth to answer, then stopped. Because the honest answer was terrifying. She wanted him. Wanted the man he was now, scars and danger and all. Wanted a chance to see if what they'd had could survive in the real world instead of being frozen in memory. But saying that out loud meant risking everything, meant admitting she was willing to gamble her safe, normal life for something messy and dangerous and possibly doomed from the start. "I want the truth," she said instead. "I want you to stop hiding behind protection and duty and tell me what you really feel." "I already told you, last night." "You told me you wanted things we couldn't have. That's not the same thing." Anthony looked at her for a long moment, and Megan thought maybe, finally, he'd break. Would admit that he loved her still, that he wanted to try, that maybe they could find a way. Instead, his phone rang. He answered it immediately, his expression shifting from conflicted to alert. "When? How many?" "I'm on my way." He hung up and looked at Megan, and the fear in his eyes made her stomach drop. "What happened?" "Victor made his move. He hit one of our facilities downtown. 3 of my people are dead, 2 more injured." Anthony was already moving, grabbing his jacket. "He's escalating. This is a declaration of war." "What does that mean for us?" "It means we're running out of time." Anthony stopped at the door, looked back at her. "Stay inside. Don't go near the windows. David's team will be on high alert. I'll be back as soon as I can." Anthony, but he was already gone. The sound of his footsteps receding down the hallway, leaving Megan alone with her fear and unanswered questions. She found her mother in the library, reading a book with determinedly normal focus. Carol looked up when Megan entered. "Something happened." It wasn't a question. Megan sank into the chair across from her. "Victor attacked one of Anthony's places. Killed 3 people." Carol paled. "Are we in danger?" "I don't know. Maybe. Probably." Megan laughed, the sound bitter. "I don't even know anymore. Every time I think I understand the situation, it gets worse." "We could leave," Carol said quietly. "Just go. Get in a car and drive and not stop until we're somewhere Anthony and Victor and all of this can't find us." "You think we'd make it to the end of the driveway?" "Probably not. But maybe it's worth trying." Megan looked at her mother, this strong, practical woman who'd raised her alone, who'd taught her to be independent and careful and smart, who was now suggesting they run like criminals themselves. "I can't," Megan said. "If I run, Victor wins. He gets to control my life by making me afraid to live it. And if I stay—" She trailed off. "If you stay, you're letting Anthony control it instead," Carol finished. "No, if I stay, I'm choosing to fight. To not let these people, any of them, decide who I get to be." Carol studied her daughter. "You've changed. In just 2 days, you've changed." "Maybe I'm just finally becoming who I was supposed to be before Anthony left." Megan stood, restless again. "Or maybe I'm completely losing it. Hard to tell." Hours passed with agonizing slowness. Megan and her mother ate lunch in tense silence, both jumping at every sound. David checked in regularly, his expression professionally neutral, offering no information about what was happening downtown. Evening came. Still no Anthony. Megan tried to read, tried to watch television, tried to do anything that would distract her from imagining worst-case scenarios. But her mind kept conjuring images of Anthony bleeding in some alley, or captured by Victor's people, or worse. Finally, around 9 p.m., she heard vehicles on the driveway. Megan ran to the window of her room, watching as SUVs pulled up to the house. Anthony climbed out of the first one, and relief flooded through her so intensely she had to grip the windowsill. He was alive. Whole. Safe. She was halfway down the stairs before she realized she was running, before she could think about whether this was smart or dignified or any of the things she should probably be. By the time she reached the foyer, Anthony was just coming through the door, and the look on his face stopped her cold, blood on his shirt, exhaustion in every line of his body, and eyes that had seen something terrible. "Anthony?" He looked up, saw her, and something in his expression cracked. "I need to talk to you, both of you. Is your mother—" "I'm here." Carol appeared on the stairs behind Megan. "What happened?" Anthony gestured to the study. When they were all inside with the door closed, he poured himself a drink with shaking hands and downed it in one swallow. "The attack today wasn't random," he said. "Victor knew exactly where to hit, exactly when our people would be vulnerable. Someone gave him that information. A traitor, Megan said. Yes, someone inside my organization, someone I trust. Anthony poured another drink but didn't consume it, just stared at the amber liquid. I've had people working all day to figure out who. We finally narrowed it down to 3 possibilities. And? And I just spent the last 6 hours interrogating them. His voice was flat, emotionless. The blood on my shirt isn't mine. The implication hit Megan like a fist. Carol made a small sound of distress. Did you find out who it was? Megan asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Yes. Anthony finally looked at her. It was Paul, my lawyer, the man you met this morning. He's been feeding Victor information for 3 months. Why? Money. Victor was paying him double what I was, plus promising him a position of power when I fell. Anthony's laugh was bitter. He sold me out for a bigger paycheck. What did you do to him? Carol asked. Anthony met her eyes. What do you think I did? The silence that followed was heavy, oppressive. Megan felt sick, imagining what Anthony meant by interrogation, what he'd done to get his answers. I need you both to understand something, Anthony said quietly. This is my world. This is what I am. I don't get to call the police or file lawsuits. I find threats and I eliminate them, permanently, brutally, without hesitation. He looked at Megan. This is what you'd be choosing if you chose me. This violence, this darkness, every single day. Megan wanted to argue, to say it didn't matter, that she could handle it. But the blood on his shirt was real. The exhaustion in his eyes was real. The weight of what he'd done, what he would keep doing, was real. I know, she said finally. Anthony blinked, surprised. You know, I'm not stupid, Anthony. I know what you are, what your world is. Megan moved closer, close enough to see flecks of she didn't want to know what on his collar. I'm not some naive girl who thinks love conquers all. I know this would be hard, probably impossible, probably doomed from the start. Then why? Because I'd rather have impossible with you than easy with someone else. And if that makes me crazy or stupid or self-destructive, then fine. But it's my choice to make, not yours. Anthony stared at her like she'd spoken in a foreign language. You can't mean that. Stop telling me what I mean. Megan's voice rose. Stop deciding for me. I'm a grown woman who's had 8 years to get over you, and I haven't. So maybe that means something. Maybe that means this is worth fighting for. It's not. I'm not. That's not your call. They stood there in the study, the air between them crackling with tension and want and fear. Carol cleared her throat. I'm going to leave you two to figure this out, she said. But Megan, honey, think carefully. This isn't just about love. It's about survival. Yours and his. When Carol left, Megan and Anthony were alone again. The silence stretched, heavy with everything they weren't saying. I killed a man tonight, Anthony said finally. Put a bullet in his head after he told me everything I needed to know. I didn't hesitate, didn't feel guilt, just nothing. You feel guilty now. How do you know? Because you're telling me about it. Because you want me to see the worst of you, so I'll leave. Megan moved closer still, until she could feel the heat of his body. It's not going to work. It should, but it won't. Anthony's hands came up, framing her face, his touch achingly gentle despite the violence he'd committed hours before. I don't know how to do this, how to be what you need. Then we'll figure it out together. Or we'll fail together, but at least we'll try. You're insane, he whispered. Probably. And then he was kissing her again, desperate and fierce, like she was salvation and damnation wrapped together. Megan kissed him back with 8 years of anger and longing, tasting blood and whiskey and regret. This time, neither of them pulled away. When Anthony finally pulled away, his forehead rested against hers, both of them breathing hard. His hands were still on her face, thumbs tracing her cheekbones like he was memorizing the shape of her. This is a mistake, he said, but there was no conviction in his voice. Probably the biggest one I've ever made. Megan's fingers had found the fabric of his shirt, twisted in it. I don't care. You should. You should run from me as fast as you can. I tried that for 8 years, didn't work. Anthony pulled back enough to look at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes nearly broke her. If I let myself have this, have you? I won't be able to let go again. You understand that? Good. Because I'm tired of you letting go. He kissed her again, softer this time, tender in a way that made her chest ache. When they finally separated, Anthony's phone was buzzing insistently in his pocket. He ignored it. You should get that, Megan said. I should, but I don't want to. He pulled the phone out anyway, glanced at the screen and swore under his breath. It's Marco. I have to take this. He answered, his expression shifting back to business in an instant. What is it? When? No, keep everyone in position. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and looked at Megan with regret. Victor's moving again. His people just hit another one of our locations. Smaller this time, but it's a pattern. He's trying to draw me out, spread my resources thin. Then don't let him. Send someone else. I can't. My people need to see me there. Need to know I'm willing to fight alongside them, especially after Paul's betrayal. Anthony grabbed a clean shirt from the closet, hidden behind the bookshelves, changing quickly. David will stay with you and your mother. Don't leave the house. Don't even think about it. Be careful. He paused at the door, looked back at her. This thing we just started. We're not done talking about it. I know. I mean it, Megan. When I get back, we figure out what this is, what it means. Okay. He left, and Megan stood alone in his study, her lips still tingling from his kiss, her heart racing with equal parts hope and terror. She'd just committed to something that could destroy her, and somehow she couldn't bring herself to regret it. She found her mother in the guest suite, already in her nightgown, reading a mystery novel with determined focus. Mom, we need to talk. Carol set down her book. About Anthony. About me and Anthony. Oh, honey. Carol patted the bed beside her. Come sit. Megan curled up next to her mother like she had when she was a child, and Carol wrapped an arm around her shoulders. I know what you're going to say, Megan started. Do you? That I'm making a mistake. That he's dangerous. That I should protect myself. Actually, I was going to ask if you're happy. That stopped Megan cold. What? Are you happy? When you're with him, when you're fighting with him, when you're kissing him, are you happy? Megan thought about it. I'm terrified and confused and angry half the time. But are you happy? Yes, Megan admitted. Stupidly, impossibly happy. Carol nodded like this confirmed something. Then that's what matters. You're not going to tell me I'm being reckless? Oh, you're absolutely being reckless. You're gambling your entire future on a man who lives in a world where people solve problems with bullets. Carol's voice was calm, matter of fact. But you're also more alive than I've seen you in 8 years. So maybe reckless is exactly what you need. I thought you hated him. I do. A little. For hurting you. Carol squeezed her shoulder. But I also saw the way he looked at you tonight, like you were the only thing keeping him human. And I saw the way you looked at him, like he was home. That's not something you find twice in a lifetime. Megan felt tears burning. What if it doesn't work? What if we try and it all falls apart? Then you'll have tried, and you'll know. Isn't that better than spending the rest of your life wondering? Maybe. Probably. Megan didn't know anymore. All she knew was that Anthony had walked back into her life and turned everything upside down, and she was choosing to fall instead of fight it. They talked for another hour, Carol asking gentle questions about what Megan wanted, what she was willing to risk. It helped, having her mother's pragmatic perspective cutting through the emotional chaos. By the time Megan returned to her own room, she felt steadier. Still terrified, but steady. Anthony didn't return until after midnight. Megan heard the vehicles on the drive, heard the low murmur of voices downstairs. She waited, not sure if he'd come find her or if he'd handle whatever crisis had pulled him away and collapse into sleep. A soft knock on her door answered that question. Come in. Anthony entered, looking exhausted but uninjured. He'd changed clothes again, the blood and violence of the evening washed away, but the weight of it still visible in his eyes. You're okay, Megan said. More or less. The second attack was a distraction. While we were scrambling to respond, Victor's people hit one of our financial operations, grabbed files, destroyed records. Anthony ran a hand through his hair. He's systematic, smart, more dangerous than I gave him credit for. What does that mean for the timeline? It means we move faster, Tomorrow we meet with the 2 lieutenants who are ready to flip. If they come over, Victor loses his muscle and his intel network. He'll be vulnerable. And if they don't, then this gets messier. Anthony moved into the room, closing the door behind him. But that's tomorrow's problem. Tonight I need to ask you something. Okay. He was quiet for a moment, clearly choosing his words. What happened downstairs earlier, in the study? Was that just adrenaline? The stress of the situation making you feel things that aren't real? Is that what you think? I think you've been through hell in the last few days. I think you're scared and isolated, and I'm the only familiar thing in all this chaos. I think maybe you're confusing protection with love. Megan stood, closing the distance between them. You want to know what I'm feeling? I'll tell you. I'm angry at you for leaving. I'm angry at myself for still wanting you. I'm terrified of what your world is, what it could do to me, and underneath all of that, I love you. Still, again, I don't even know if it ever stopped. Anthony's breath caught. Megan. I'm not done. I know this is insane. I know we're probably doomed. I know that choosing you means choosing danger and violence and a life I never wanted. But I also know that when you kiss me, I feel like I can breathe again for the first time in 8 years. So no, it's not just adrenaline. It's not confusion. It's just the truth. For a long moment, Anthony just looked at her. Then he was kissing her again, fierce and desperate, backing her toward the bed. Megan's hands found his shirt, pulling it free, needing to feel skin instead of fabric. He broke the kiss long enough to look at her, asking silent permission. Yes, she whispered. What happened next was clumsy and urgent, and nothing like the carefully choreographed scenes in movies. Anthony knocked over a lamp, reaching for her. Megan got tangled in her sweater, trying to pull it off. They laughed despite the gravity of what they were doing, despite everything hanging over them. And when they finally came together, skin against skin, it felt like coming home after being lost for years. Not perfect, not smooth, but real in a way that made Megan's chest ache. Afterward, they lay tangled in expensive sheets, Anthony's arm around her, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat slowly return to normal. I don't know how to do this, he said quietly. How to be with you and keep you safe at the same time. Maybe you can't do both. That's not acceptable. Megan propped herself up to look at him. Then we figure it out together. You stop trying to control everything and let me help. Help how? You're not... He stopped himself. Not what? Not trained for violence? Not equipped to handle your world? Megan sat up fully, pulling the sheet with her. You're right. I'm not. But I'm smart and I'm stubborn. And I know you better than anyone else in your life. That has to count for something. Anthony pulled her back down against him. It counts for everything. That's the problem. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, stealing a few hours of peace before tomorrow's chaos resumed. Megan woke to sunlight and the smell of coffee. Anthony was already up, dressed, standing by the window with his phone pressed to his ear. She watched him for a moment, this man who'd become a stranger and then familiar all over again in the space of days. He turned, saw her awake, and ended his call. Morning? Morning. Megan sat up, suddenly self-conscious. What time is it? 7. I let you sleep. He brought her a cup of coffee, fixed exactly how she liked it, which meant he'd remembered after 8 years. The meet with Victor's lieutenants is at 10. I need to prep. Can I come? No. Anthony. It's too dangerous. These are men who've killed for Victor, who might still be loyal to him. If this is a trap, if it goes wrong, then you'll want someone there who has your back. I'll have Marco and Vincent. They're trained for this. Megan set down her coffee. Last night you said we'd figure this out together. That means letting me in, not keeping me locked up here like some princess in a tower. That's not what I'm doing, isn't it? Anthony's jaw tightened. This isn't a negotiation, Megan. You're staying here where you're safe. End of discussion. You don't get to make that call. Yes, I do. Because keeping you alive is more important than your feelings about being protected. The words hit like a slap. Megan felt her anger rising, hot and sharp. This is exactly what I was afraid of. You say you want to be with me, but the second things get real, you fall back into the same pattern. Making decisions for me, controlling my life. I'm trying to keep you alive. I know, and I'm grateful. But I can't live like this, Anthony. I can't be with someone who treats me like I'm fragile, like I need constant protection. You do need protection. Victor wants to kill you just to hurt me. That's not paranoia, it's fact. Then teach me to protect myself. Give me a gun. Teach me to shoot. Let me learn instead of locking me away. Anthony stared at her like she'd suggested jumping off a bridge. You want to learn to shoot? I want to not be helpless. There's a difference. For a long moment, he didn't respond. Then something shifted in his expression, surprise giving way to consideration. You're serious. Completely. You understand what you're asking? Guns aren't toys. If you learn to shoot, you need to be prepared to use it, to potentially kill someone. Megan's stomach twisted, but she nodded. I understand. Anthony studied her, and she could see him reassessing, recalculating. Okay. After the meeting, when I get back, I'll teach you. Basic safety, how to hold it, how to aim. Nothing advanced, just enough that you're not completely helpless if something happens. It wasn't what Megan wanted. She wanted to go with him, wanted to be part of this instead of waiting on the sidelines. But it was something. A concession. A sign that maybe he was willing to meet her halfway. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You might hate it. Anthony moved to the door. Stay inside. David's team is on high alert. Your mother's having breakfast in the dining room if you want company. Be careful today. He paused. I'm always careful. No, you're always controlled. That's different. Today, be actually careful. Come back to me. Something in Anthony's expression softened. He crossed back to her, kissed her forehead. I will. I promise. When he was gone, Megan got dressed and went to find her mother. Carol was indeed in the dining room, working through a plate of eggs while reading something on a tablet David must have provided. Morning, honey. Sleep well? The knowing look in her mother's eyes made Megan flush. Mom, I'm just asking about your sleep. Why, did something else happen? You're impossible. I'm observant. There's a difference. Carol set down the tablet. He left for the meeting? Yes, and I'm stuck here, useless. You're not useless. You're safe. There's a difference. Megan poured herself more coffee, restless and frustrated. I can't just sit here while he risks his life. That's what being with someone like Anthony means, though. Waiting, worrying, hoping they come home. Carol's voice was gentle. Your father was a firefighter. I spent 20 years watching him walk out the door, not knowing if he'd come back. It's not easy. Megan had forgotten that. Her father had died when she was 12, a roof collapse during a warehouse fire. She remembered her mother's face when the chief came to the door, the way her whole world had shattered in an instant. How did you do it? Megan asked quietly. I loved him more than I feared losing him, and I trusted him to be as careful as he could be. Carol reached across the table, took her daughter's hand. But I won't lie to you. There were nights I couldn't sleep, days I jumped every time the phone rang. It takes a toll. Maybe I'm not strong enough for this. You are. You're stronger than you know. You just have to decide if he's worth it. Was he? Megan thought about Anthony's hands on her face, the way he looked at her like she was everything, thought about the violence he was capable of, the darkness he lived in, thought about the alternative, going back to her safe, quiet life without him. He is, she said. He's worth it. The morning dragged. Megan tried to read, tried to watch television, tried to do anything that would distract her from checking the clock every 5 minutes. Her mother wisely said nothing, just stayed nearby, a quiet presence. Around 11, David appeared in the doorway of the library where Megan had finally settled with a book she wasn't actually reading. Miss Foster, I have an update. Megan stood immediately. What happened? Is Anthony okay? Mr. Rossi is fine. The meeting went as planned. Both lieutenants agreed to flip. They're providing locations and schedules for Victor's remaining operations. Relief flooded through her. That's good, right? Very good. It means we're in the endgame now. Within 48 hours, this should be over. Over? The word should have been comforting. Instead, Megan felt a strange twist of anxiety. When this was over, she'd have to decide what came next. Whether to try building something real with Anthony or walk away while she still could. When will he be back? She asked. Couple hours. He's coordinating the next moves with his team. David hesitated, then added, He asked me to tell you he hasn't forgotten his promise. About the firearms training. Megan almost smiled. Thank you, David. When Anthony finally returned, it was mid-afternoon. Megan was in the garden, technically still inside the secure perimeter, though she'd needed the fresh air desperately. He found her there, sitting on a stone bench watching leaves fall from trees that probably cost more than her car. "You kept your promise," she said without preamble. "You came back." "Always." He sat beside her and she could feel the exhaustion rolling off him. "David told you about the meeting? That it went well, that we're close to the end?" "Yeah, we hit Victor's main operations tomorrow night. If everything goes according to plan, by this time tomorrow, the threat's neutralized." "And if it doesn't go according to plan?" Anthony was quiet for a moment. "Then things get complicated, but they won't. We have the intel we need, the people we need." Victor's backed into a corner. "Cornered animals are the most dangerous." "I know. That's why I'm being careful." He took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "You ready for that shooting lesson?" Megan's stomach flipped. "Now?" "No time like the present. Come on." He led her through the grounds to a structure she hadn't noticed before, what looked like a maintenance building but turned out to house a private shooting range. The space was soundproofed, climate-controlled, lined with targets at various distances. Anthony retrieved a handgun from a locked cabinet, checking it with practiced efficiency. "This is a Glock 19, 9mm 15-round magazine, standard for a reason, reliable, relatively easy to handle, enough stopping power to be effective." He walked her through the basics: how to hold it, how to stand, how to aim. His hands guided hers, positioning her fingers, adjusting her stance. Despite the seriousness of what they were doing, Megan was acutely aware of his body behind hers, his breath on her neck. "Focus," Anthony said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "I am focused." On the target. He stepped back and Megan raised the gun, trying to remember everything he'd told her. The weight felt foreign in her hands, heavy with potential violence. "Whenever you're ready," Anthony said. Megan squeezed the trigger. The recoil surprised her, the gun jumping in her hands. Her shot went wide, missing the target completely. "That's okay. Try again. Adjust your grip." She fired again and again. By the 10th shot, she was at least hitting the target, even if she wasn't anywhere near the center. "Better," Anthony said. "You're flinching less. Try to keep your breathing steady." They spent an hour there, Anthony patient and methodical as a teacher. By the end, Megan's arms ached and her ears rang despite the protection, but she could reliably hit the target. Not well, not expertly, but enough. "You did good," Anthony said as they packed up. "Better than most people their first time." "I hate it," Megan admitted. "The weight, the noise, the feeling of it. I hate all of it." "Good. You should hate it. Means you respect what it can do." He secured the gun back in the cabinet. "But now if something happens, if someone gets past my people, you know how to defend yourself." "You really think it'll come to that?" Anthony pulled her close, his expression serious. "I think Victor's desperate and dangerous. I think he'll try something before we take him down. And I think I'll sleep better tonight knowing you can protect yourself if you have to." That night, Victor proved Anthony right. They were having dinner, Megan, Anthony, Carol, and a few of Anthony's key people, when the power went out. One second the dining room was bright and warm, the next it was pitch black except for the faint glow of emergency lighting kicking in. "Everyone down!" David's voice cut through the darkness. "Now!" Anthony grabbed Megan, pulling her under the table. She heard her mother's startled cry, heard the sounds of weapons being drawn, of men moving through the house with tactical precision. "What's happening?" Megan whispered. "Someone cut the main power. Could be equipment failure, but..." The window exploded inward, glass spraying across the room. Megan screamed as Anthony covered her body with his, shielding her from the shards. Gunfire erupted, sharp cracks that made her ears ring, muzzle flashes lighting the room in strobes. "Get them to the safe room," Anthony shouted. "Now!" Hands grabbed Megan, David's, she thought, hauling her out from under the table. She caught a glimpse of her mother being pulled along by another guard, of Anthony returning fire at shapes moving in the darkness outside. Then she was being dragged through hallways, downstairs, David's hand iron tight on her arm. More gunfire behind them, closer than before. Someone was inside the house. They reached the safe room. David shoved Megan inside, then her mother. Lock it behind me. Don't open it for anyone except Mr. Rossi or me. You understand? David, wait! But he was already gone, the vault door swinging shut with mechanical finality. Megan and Carol were alone in the reinforced room, the sounds of gunfire muffled but still audible through the thick walls. Mom, are you okay? Megan grabbed her mother's shoulders, checking for injuries. I'm fine. Scared, but fine. Carol's hands were shaking. What's happening? Victor's people, they found us. On the monitors, Megan could see chaos. Men in tactical gear storming the house. Anthony's people falling back, fighting room by room. She searched the screens frantically for Anthony, finally spotting him near the main entrance, coordinated and lethal as he directed his people. Then one of the monitors went dark. Then another. Someone was systematically taking out the cameras. They're coming for us, Megan said. The safe room is secure, David said, don't open the door. He didn't say they couldn't get through it. As if in answer, there was a massive explosion somewhere in the house. The whole room shook, dust raining from the ceiling. One of the remaining monitors showed smoke billowing from the east wing. They're using explosives, Carol said, her voice tight with fear. Megan moved to the weapons cabinet, her hands shaking as she input the code Anthony had shown her earlier. The door swung open, revealing an arsenal. She grabbed the Glock 19, the one she'd trained with, and checked it the way Anthony had taught her. Megan, what are you doing? Being ready. She handed her mother a smaller pistol. Do you know how to use this? Your father taught me, long time ago. Carol took it with trembling hands. I never thought I'd need to. Me neither. They waited in the safe room, weapons ready, listening to the sounds of battle rage above them. Minutes stretched like hours. Megan's finger rested on the trigger guard, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break her ribs. Then silence. Sudden and absolute. Megan and Carol looked at each other. Is it over? Carol whispered. Before Megan could answer, someone pounded on the safe room door. Megan, open up! Anthony's voice. Megan moved toward the controls, but Carol grabbed her arm. Wait, how do we know it's really him? The question sent ice through Megan's veins. They'd been warned about this, about Victor's people using recordings, about tricks to get them to open up. Megan, I know you can hear me. You need to open this door now. Anthony again, urgent but controlled. Victor's people are falling back, but I need to get you both somewhere more secure. What did you promise me this afternoon? Megan called through the door. In the garden? A pause, then, that I'd come back to you. Always. It was him. Had to be. Megan worked the controls and the vault door swung open. Anthony stood there, blood on his face from a cut above his eyebrow, his shirt torn, but alive. Relief crashed over Megan so intensely her knees nearly buckled. You're okay, she breathed. For now, we need to move. They'll regroup and hit us again. He looked past her to Carol. Mrs. Foster, are you injured? No, I'm fine. What happened out there? Victor threw everything he had at us. 15 men, maybe 20. We took down most of them, but some got away. Anthony was already moving, leading them out of the safe room. The house isn't secure anymore. We're evacuating to a secondary location. They emerged into chaos. The grand entrance hall was destroyed, furniture overturned, bullet holes stitching the walls. Bodies, Megan couldn't tell if they were Anthony's people or Victor's, lay motionless. The smell of gunpowder and blood was overwhelming. Marco appeared from a hallway, weapon raised. SUVs are ready. We need to go now. They ran through the ruined house, Anthony keeping Megan and Carol between him and Marco. Outside, 3 black SUVs idled in the circular drive, engines running. David stood by one, blood seeping through a makeshift bandage on his shoulder, but otherwise operational. Everyone accounted for? Anthony asked. Everyone's still alive. David's voice was grim. We lost Thompson, Rodriguez, and Chen. 4 more injured but mobile. 3 dead. 3 people who'd been eating dinner an hour ago, who'd died protecting her. Megan felt sick. Get Mrs. Foster in the second vehicle, Anthony ordered. Megan's with me. Anthony, I should go with my mother. No, I'm not letting you out of my sight. His tone left no room for argument. He helped Carol into the middle SUV, then pulled Megan toward the lead vehicle. They were almost there when Megan saw movement in her peripheral vision. A man emerging from the tree line, weapon raising. Anthony! She shoved him aside just as the shot rang out. Pain exploded in her shoulder, white-hot and all-consuming. Megan's legs gave out, and she was falling, the ground rushing up to meet her. More gunshots, closer now. Anthony's face appeared above her, his mouth moving, but she couldn't hear him over the ringing in her ears. Then she was being lifted, carried. The world tilted and spun. She caught fragmented images, her mother screaming, David returning fire, trees blurring past as the SUV accelerated. "Stay with me." Anthony's voice cut through the fog. "Megan, stay with me. You're going to be okay." She tried to answer, but the darkness was pulling at her, insistent and cold. The last thing she saw before it claimed her was Anthony's face, streaked with her blood and his tears, promising her things she couldn't quite hear. Then, nothing. Pain dragged Megan back to consciousness, sharp and insistent in her shoulder, radiating down her arm in waves that made her teeth clench. She tried to move and immediately regretted it. "Don't," Anthony's voice, rough with exhaustion. "You'll tear the stitches." Megan forced her eyes open. She was in a bed, not the mansion, somewhere smaller, dimmer. Anthony sat in a chair pulled close to the bedside, his shirt still stained with blood that she realized with a jolt was probably hers. "How long?" Her voice came out raspy. 6 hours. You've been in and out." He reached for a water bottle, held the straw to her lips. "Drink." Slowly. The water helped clear some of the fog. Megan's brain started cataloging details. Clean white walls, medical equipment beeping softly, the smell of antiseptic. A private clinic, she guessed, the kind that didn't ask questions. "My mother?" "Next room, uninjured, scared out of her mind, but physically fine." Anthony set down the water. "You saved my life." The memory came back in pieces, the gunman in the trees, shoving Anthony aside, the impact of the bullet hitting her shoulder. "I didn't think. I just moved." "You took a bullet meant for me." Something raw flickered across Anthony's face. "You could have died." "But I didn't. You came close." The bullet nicked an artery. "If we'd been 5 minutes further from the clinic." He stopped, jaw clenching. "I almost lost you because you were protecting me. That's not how this is supposed to work." "There's no supposed to. There's just what happened." Megan tried to sit up, gasped at the pain. Anthony immediately helped, adjusting pillows behind her with surprising gentleness. "Did they get away? Victor's people?" "Most of them. We're tracking the ones who survived." Anthony's voice went cold. "But Victor himself wasn't there. He sent his crew to test our defenses while he stayed safe somewhere. Cowards move." "Smart move," Megan corrected. "He's still out there. We're not safe yet." "No, we're not." Anthony stood, pacing to the window. Dawn light was starting to creep through the blinds. "Which is why what I'm about to tell you is going to make you angry." Megan's stomach dropped. "What did you do?" "I made a call. To Vincent and Marco. While you were in surgery." He turned to face her. "We're moving up the timeline. Hitting Victor's main compound tonight instead of waiting. Every resource we have, all at once. We end this now." "That's not what makes me angry. What else?" Anthony's expression confirmed her suspicion. "You and your mother are being moved to a secure location 3 hours from here. Somewhere Victor doesn't know about. Somewhere he can't reach. You'll stay there with a full security team until this is over." "No." "Megan, no. I'm not running while you walk into a war." She pushed herself more upright despite the pain screaming through her shoulder. "You promised we'd figure this out together." "That was before you got shot protecting me." Anthony's control cracked, anger and fear bleeding through. "I can't do this if I'm worried about you. I can't focus on taking down Victor if half my brain is terrified that he'll get to you again." "Then don't make me leave. Keep me close where you know I'm safe." "The safest place for you is as far from me as possible." "We tried that already. 8 years, remember? It didn't work." Megan met his eyes. "I'm not leaving. You'll have to physically drag me, and given that I just got shot, that's going to make you look like a real bastard." Despite everything, Anthony almost smiled. "You fight dirty." "I learned from the best." He moved back to the bedside, sat on the edge. "You understand what tonight means. If we fail, if Victor wins, he'll kill everyone connected to me, including you, especially you for what you did to his men at the house." I didn't do anything. I was in the safe room. You survived. That's enough. Anthony took her hand, careful of the IV line. This isn't a game, Megan. This is the end. One way or another, by tomorrow morning, either Victor's dead or we are. The weight of that settled over her. Then I want to be with you. If this is it, if these are the last hours, I don't want to spend them hiding in some safe house wondering if you're alive. You're asking me to risk you. I'm asking you to trust me, to let me make my own choices, even the dangerous ones. She squeezed his hand. I know the cost. I'm choosing to pay it. Anthony looked at her for a long moment, and she could see the war in his eyes. Finally, he nodded. Okay, but you stay with David at a secondary position. You don't come to the compound. That's non-negotiable. Deal. And if things go wrong, if I give the order, you run. You and your mother get in a car and you drive until you hit Canada. Understood? Understood. He leaned down, kissed her forehead. I'm going to check on your mother. Try to rest. The doctor said you need at least a few more hours before you should even be sitting up. Anthony? She caught his hand before he could leave. Come back to me tonight. Whatever happens with Victor, you come back. I will. I promise. After he left, Megan lay back against the pillows, exhaustion pulling at her. But her mind wouldn't quiet. Tonight, everything would end. Either they'd win and she could start building a real life with Anthony, or they'd lose and none of it would matter. She must have dozed because the next time she opened her eyes, her mother was sitting in the chair Anthony had vacated, watching her with red-rimmed eyes. Mom, don't you ever do that again. Carol's voice shook. Don't you ever scare me like that. When I saw you fall, when I saw all that blood, I'm okay, I'm fine. You got shot, Megan. You are objectively not fine. Carol wiped at her eyes angrily. Anthony told me what you did, that you pushed him out of the way. I didn't think. I just reacted. That's what scares me. You didn't think. You just threw yourself in front of a bullet for him. Carol leaned forward. I know you love him. I see it. But you can't keep doing this. You can't sacrifice yourself for him. He would do the same for me. He has done the same for you. 8 years ago, when he left. And it destroyed you both. Carol took her hand. I'm not saying don't love him. I'm saying don't lose yourself in the process. The words hit harder than Megan expected. I don't know how to do both. How to love him and stay whole. Nobody does at first. It's something you learn. Carol smiled sadly. Your father and I fought about it constantly. Him running into burning buildings, me terrified every day. But we found balance. We found ways to be partners instead of just protector and protected. How? By being honest. By admitting when we were scared instead of pretending to be strong all the time. By letting each other be both vulnerable and brave. Carol squeezed her hand. Anthony spent 8 years trying to protect you by pushing you away. You've spent 8 years trying to prove you don't need protection. Maybe it's time you both tried something different. A nurse came in then to check Megan's vitals and change her bandages. The wound was ugly, stitched and swollen, already bruising purple and black. But the nurse said it was healing well, that she'd been lucky. Lucky. Megan would have laughed if it didn't hurt so much. By late afternoon, the doctor cleared her to move around, though he warned her to take it easy. Megan showered carefully, changed into clothes someone had brought, jeans and a loose button-up shirt that didn't aggravate her shoulder. When she emerged, Anthony was back, looking marginally more rested but no less tense. We leave in 2 hours, he said. I've arranged for your mother to be taken to the secure location as planned. You'll come with me to the secondary position like we agreed. And if I say I've changed my mind about that, then I'll have David carry you there unconscious if necessary. Anthony's tone said he wasn't joking. I'm already breaking every rule I have by keeping you anywhere near this. Don't push it. Megan wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. He was barely holding it together, the stress of the impending confrontation written in every line of his body. Pushing him now would only make things worse. Okay, secondary position, but you keep me updated, every step. I will. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Megan said goodbye to her mother, both of them crying despite their best efforts to stay strong. Carol made Anthony promise to keep her daughter safe, and the look he gave her in return was so fierce it left no room for doubt. Then they were in vehicles again, A convoy of 3 SUVs heading into the city as dusk fell. Megan rode with Anthony, his hand covering hers on the seat between them. "Tell me the plan," she said. "I want to understand what's happening." Anthony pulled out a tablet, showing her what looked like building schematics. Victor's main compound is a warehouse complex in the industrial district. 3 buildings, interconnected. He uses them for storage, operations, and he lives in a penthouse conversion in the center building. How many people? Somewhere between 20 and 30, based on our intel. We'll have approximately the same numbers, plus the element of surprise. Vincent's 2 lieutenants gave us access codes and guard rotations. You trust them? What if it's a trap? It might be. That's why we're going in prepared for the worst. Anthony zoomed in on the center building. Marco's team enters from the north, Vincent's from the south. I take a smaller team directly to the penthouse to confront Victor. And me? You and David stay here. He indicated a building 3 blocks away. High vantage point, clear sight lines. David's one of our best marksmen. If things go wrong, he provides cover while we extract. It was a sound plan. Professional. The kind of operation that should work if everyone did their jobs. But Megan couldn't shake the feeling that something was going to go wrong. What if Victor's not there, she asked. What if he ran? Then we tear apart his entire operation until we find him. But he won't run. Men like Victor don't run. They dig in and fight to the last. They reach the secondary position, an office building, evacuated for the weekend. David and 2 other men were already there, setting up equipment. Anthony walked Megan through to a corner office with windows overlooking the warehouse complex in the distance. You stay here, he said. No matter what you see, no matter what you hear, you stay put. David has orders to physically restrain you if necessary. I know. You've told me, repeatedly. Anthony pulled her close, mindful of her injured shoulder. I need you to promise me something. What? If I don't make it back, don't. Megan cut him off. Don't say that, you're coming back. If I don't, he continued, voice firm, there's an envelope in the safe at the clinic. Instructions, money, contacts, everything you need to disappear and start over. Promise me you'll use it. Anthony? Promise me, Megan. She looked up at him, this man who'd turned her life upside down twice now, who'd broken her heart to save her life, who was about to walk into a situation that could kill him. And she knew that if she didn't promise, he'd spend the whole operation worried about what would happen to her instead of focused on staying alive. I promise. He kissed her then, deep and desperate, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her. When he pulled back, his eyes were suspiciously bright. I love you, he said. I should have said it 8 years ago. Should have said it every day since. I love you, Megan Foster. No matter what happens tonight, I need you to know that. Megan's throat was tight. I love you too, so you better come back and tell me again in person. I will. He kissed her once more, quick and fierce, then stepped back. David, she's yours. Keep her safe. With my life, boss. Then Anthony was gone, his footsteps echoing down the empty hallway. Megan watched from the window as he emerged on the street below, climbing into an SUV with Marco and 3 others. The convoy pulled away, heading toward the warehouse complex. He'll be okay, David said quietly. Mr. Rossi's good at this. One of the best I've seen. Have you ever seen him this distracted before? This worried about someone? David was quiet for a moment. No, never. But maybe that makes him better, not worse. Gives him something to fight for instead of just something to fight against. Megan hoped he was right. The next 30 minutes crawled by. David set up a laptop showing multiple camera feeds, some from drones, some from cameras Anthony's people had planted. Megan watched as teams moved into position, dark figures against darker buildings. Any minute now, David murmured, his eye to a scope mounted on the window. Then everything happened at once. On the feeds, she saw Marco's team breach the north entrance, saw Vincent's team hit the south, saw muzzle flashes as gunfire erupted. The sound reached them seconds later, distant pops that made Megan's hands clench. They're in, David reported. Meeting resistance but moving forward. Megan watched the feeds, trying to track Anthony. There, she caught a glimpse of him moving through a hallway, weapon raised. 3 men with him, moving like they'd done this 1,000 times. They reached a stairwell, started climbing. On other feeds, the fighting was fierce, bodies dropping, both sides taking casualties. Megan saw one of Anthony's people go down, two of Victor's. The warehouse was chaos, smoke and blood and violence. "Come on," she whispered. "Come on." Anthony's team reached the top floor. Megan leaned closer to the screen, her heart in her throat. They approached a door. The penthouse entrance. One of Anthony's men placed something on the handle. Explosive charge. The screen went white as it detonated. When the image cleared, Anthony's team was moving through the smoke into a large space. And there, waiting for them, was Victor Castellano. He wasn't alone. At least 10 men surrounded him, weapons trained on the doorway. "It's a trap," Megan breathed. But Anthony didn't retreat. He stepped forward, lowering his weapon slightly. Megan couldn't hear what he was saying, but she could read his body language. Negotiating, trying to talk his way out. Victor said something back, laughed, raised his own weapon. "No," Megan said. "No, no, no." Gunfire erupted. Anthony dove behind a support column as his team returned fire. The feed dissolved into chaos. Too much smoke, too much movement. Megan couldn't track who was who, couldn't see if Anthony was okay. "David, can you see him? Can you see if he's—" "I got him." David's voice was tense. 3 o'clock. Behind the pillar. He's pinned down. On the screen, Megan could see the situation deteriorating. Anthony's team was outnumbered, outgunned. They were being driven back toward the stairwell. Then one of the feeds showed something that made her blood run cold. Victor's reinforcements, pouring in from a hidden entrance. At least 15 more men, cutting off the retreat. "They're surrounded," David said, already on his radio. "All teams. Rossi is pinned in the penthouse. Need immediate support. Repeat, immediate support." But on the other feeds, Marco's and Vincent's teams were fighting their own battles, couldn't extract to help. Anthony was on his own. Megan watched in horror as the situation spiraled. One of Anthony's men went down, then another. Anthony was still fighting, but he was running out of ammunition, running out of options. This was it. This was how it ended. She was going to watch the man she loved die on a grainy camera feed while she stood 3 blocks away, helpless. No. The word crystallized in her mind with perfect clarity. She hadn't survived getting shot, hadn't fought her way back to Anthony after 8 years, to lose him now because she'd followed orders to stay put. Megan grabbed the Glock from the table where David had left it. "Miss Foster, what are you doing?" David moved to intercept her, but Megan was already backing toward the door. "I'm sorry, David. I know Anthony gave you orders, but I'm giving you different ones." She raised the gun, not pointing it at him, but making her intention clear. "You can come with me and help, or you can stay here. But you're not stopping me. If I let you go, Mr. Rossi will kill me. Only if he survives. And right now, those odds aren't looking great." Megan's voice was steady despite the fear coursing through her. "I have an idea, but I need your help." David looked at her for a long moment. Then he swore under his breath and grabbed his rifle. "What's your idea?" "Victor's expecting an assault from inside the building. He's not watching for threats from outside." Megan pointed to the warehouse across the street. "That rooftop has a direct line of sight to the penthouse windows. If you can get there, you can provide cover fire, create a distraction." "That's actually not a terrible plan," David admitted, "but it's a 2-person job. Someone needs to spot while I shoot." "Then let's go." They ran. Down the stairs, out into the street, across to the neighboring warehouse. The building was locked, but David made short work of it. They climbed 6 flights of stairs, Megan's shoulder screaming in protest, finally emerging onto the roof. From here, they had a clear view into Victor's penthouse. Megan could see Anthony, still pinned behind the column, surrounded on 3 sides. Could see Victor directing his men, coordinating the assault that would finish this. "Range is about 300 meters, David said, setting up his rifle. "Wind's minimal. I can make this work, but I need you to spot for me. See that scope?" He pointed to a spotting scope mounted next to his rifle. "You tell me what you see, I adjust, we take them down." Megan positioned herself behind the scope, her hands shaking. Through the magnification, she could see individual faces. Could see the fear and determination on Anthony's face as he returned fire. 3 men advancing from the left, she said. Distance maybe 20 feet from Anthony's position. "Got them." David fired. One of the men dropped. Fired again. A second fell. In the penthouse, everyone froze, trying to figure out where the shots came from. Anthony used the confusion, moved to better cover, took down 2 more of Victor's men. "It's working," Megan said. "Keep going." They fell into a rhythm, Megan spotting, calling out targets, David firing with mechanical precision. Each shot bought Anthony a few more seconds, a few more feet of ground. But Victor was adapting. He pulled his men back, had them take cover away from the windows. The shooting gallery closed. "I'm out of targets," David said. "They've moved to the interior." On Megan's scope, she could see Anthony assessing the situation, could see him making a decision. He looked toward his team, down to just 2 men now, and said something. Then he stood, dropped his empty rifle, and walked toward Victor's position with his hands slightly raised. "What is he doing?" Megan whispered. "He's surrendering, trying to end it without more bloodshed." David's voice was grim. "Or he's got a plan. Hard to tell with him." Megan watched as Anthony approached Victor. The 2 men faced each other across the penthouse, surrounded by dead and dying. She wished desperately she could hear what they were saying. Anthony spoke. Victor responded, weapons still raised, back and forth, negotiating. Then Victor lowered his gun slightly. "He's getting through," Megan said. "He's actually getting through to him." But then one of Victor's men, young, twitchy, raised his weapon, aimed at Anthony's back. "No!" Megan screamed. Even though they couldn't hear her, David was already firing. The shot took the young man in the shoulder, spinning him around, but his finger was already on the trigger. His weapon discharged wild. The bullet caught Victor in the chest. Everything stopped. Victor looked down at the blood blooming across his shirt, surprised. Then his legs gave out, and he collapsed. The penthouse erupted into chaos. Victor's men, seeing their leader fall, opened fire on each other in confusion and panic. Anthony dropped, rolled behind cover as bullets flew. "We need to get down there," Megan said. "Now." They ran. Back down the stairs, across the street. David was on his radio, calling for medical, calling for backup. But Megan's focus was singular, getting to Anthony, making sure he was alive. They reached the warehouse just as Marco's team finally broke through to the penthouse. The fighting was over. Victor's men had either fled or surrendered. The complex was secure. Megan took the stairs 2 at a time, ignoring the pain in her shoulder, ignoring David's shouts to slow down. She burst into the penthouse to find Anthony kneeling beside Victor's body, checking for a pulse. "Anthony." He looked up, and the relief that flooded his face was almost painful to witness. Then it shifted to anger. "What the hell are you doing here? I told you to stay." "I saved your life." "You're welcome." Megan crossed to him, grabbed his face in her hands. "Are you hurt?" "No, I'm fine, but you shouldn't be here. It's not safe." "It's over. Look around. It's over." Anthony stood, pulled her against him, held her so tight she could barely breathe. "You were supposed to stay put. You were supposed to be safe." "I was safer here with you than I would have been anywhere else." Megan pulled back enough to look at him. "Is he dead?" "Victor?" Anthony glanced down at the body. "Yes. One of his own men shot him, but yes, he's gone." "Then it's really over." "Yeah, it's really over." Around them, Anthony's people were securing the building, tending to wounded, cataloging the aftermath. Marco approached, blood on his face, but walking. "Boss, we got problems. Vincent took a round to the leg. He's headed to the clinic. We lost 4 total, 6 more injured." 4 dead, 6 injured. The cost of ending this war. Anthony's expression was heavy with it. "Get everyone medical attention, set up security perimeter, and get someone to deal with—" He gestured to Victor's body. "Make sure it's respectful. Whatever else he was, he deserves that." Marco nodded and moved off. Anthony turned back to Megan. "We should go. Get you checked out. Make sure you didn't tear your stitches running around playing hero." "I wasn't playing. I was being a hero. There's a difference." Despite everything, Anthony smiled. "Yeah, you were. My hero." They left the warehouse together, stepping out into the night air. Emergency vehicles were arriving, along with police that Anthony's people must have arranged. It would be handled quietly, swept under the rug the way these things always were in his world. Megan leaned against Anthony as they walked to the SUV. Exhaustion was crashing over her in waves, the adrenaline finally wearing off. "Take me home," she said. Then realized she didn't know where home was anymore. Her apartment wasn't safe. The mansion was destroyed. She was adrift. "I've got a place," Anthony said, reading her mind. "Smaller, downtown, Secure but normal. Actual neighbors, coffee shop on the corner, more your speed. You bought a normal apartment? 6 months ago. Been fixing it up. Thought maybe someday, if I got through all this, I might want to try living like a regular person. He helped her into the vehicle. Seemed like a nice dream. And now? Now, maybe it's not just a dream. They drove through the city, leaving the warehouse district behind. Megan watched the lights blur past, processing everything that had happened. Victor was dead. The threat was gone. She and Anthony had survived. Now came the hard part, figuring out what came next. The apartment was in a converted warehouse in a neighborhood Megan actually recognized. Trendy, gentrified, full of young professionals and coffee shops. The building had security, but the subtle kind, not the fortress-like setup of the estate. Anthony's unit was on the top floor. Open concept, industrial chic, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. It was beautiful and surprisingly normal, like he'd actually tried to imagine what a regular life might look like. "I like it," Megan said, moving to the windows. "Yeah?" Anthony came up behind her, wrapped his arms carefully around her waist. "I was hoping you would. Were you planning to bring me here before all this happened?" "I don't know. Maybe. I kept thinking about it. About what I'd say if I ever got the chance to see you again." He rested his chin on her good shoulder. "Never imagined it would happen like this." Megan turned in his arms. "We need to talk about what happens now. For real this time, not in between crises." "I know." Anthony led her to the couch, sat down with her. "I have to rebuild after this. The organization, the operations, it's going to take time and focus. I have a gallery to get back to, a life I left behind." Megan took his hand. "But I don't want that life anymore. Not without you in it." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to try. Really try. Not sneaking around, not pretending we're something we're not. I want to see if we can build something real." Paused. "But I need you to be honest with me. About what you do, where you go, the risks you take. No more protecting me by keeping me in the dark." "That's going to be hard for me." "I know, but it's non-negotiable." Anthony was quiet for a moment. "What about your work? Your mother? Your friends?" "I'll figure it out. Talk to Sarah, explain some of it. Keep working at the gallery if they'll have me back or find something else. Visit my mom regularly." Megan squeezed his hand. "But my home base is here. With you. If you want me." "If I want you?" "Megan, I've wanted you for 8 years. I've never stopped wanting you." "Then we try. We take it slow, figure out how to blend our lives together. You teach me about your world, I'll teach you about mine. We meet in the middle. And when my world gets dark again, because it will. This thing with Victor is over, but there will be other threats, other problems. Then we face them together. You stop trying to shield me from everything, and I stop expecting you to be someone you're not." Megan moved closer. "We're both complicated, damaged people. Maybe that's okay. Maybe that's even good." Anthony pulled her into his lap, careful of her shoulder. "I love you, and I'm terrified of screwing this up." "I love you too, and same. But we're going to screw it up anyway, probably 100 times. The question is whether we're willing to keep trying after." "Yes." The answer was immediate. Always yes. He kissed her then, and it felt different from the desperate kisses before. This one was a promise. A beginning instead of an ending. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped around each other on the couch, watching the city lights flicker outside the windows. Eventually, exhaustion won. Anthony carried her to bed, his bed, in his apartment, in a life they might actually get to build together. Megan fell asleep in his arms, and for the first time in 8 years, she didn't dream about him leaving. She dreamed about him staying. The next few weeks were chaotic. Anthony had to consolidate power, deal with the fallout from Victor's death, navigate the complex politics of his world. Megan returned to the gallery, her boss surprisingly understanding after some vague explanations about family emergencies and personal crises. She didn't tell Sarah everything, but she told her enough. That Anthony was back, that things were complicated, that she was trying something that might be insane. Sarah's response was simple. "Are you happy?" And Megan realized she was. Despite everything, despite the danger and the uncertainty, she was happy. Carol returned to Connecticut, but visited often, warming to Anthony gradually. They'd never be best friends, but they reached an understanding. He loved her daughter. He'd protect her daughter. And he was trying, genuinely trying, to be better than what he'd been. 3 months after Victor's death, on a cold February evening, Anthony took Megan to dinner. Not La Colline. That restaurant would always be tainted by how this all started. Somewhere new, quiet, intimate. After the meal, he suggested a walk along the pier. Megan bundled into her coat, took his hand, and they strolled through the winter night. "I've been thinking," Anthony said, "about the future." "Yeah?" "About what I want it to look like, who I want in it." He stopped walking, turned to face her. "I spent 8 years trying to keep you safe by staying away. I don't want to spend the next 8 years doing the same thing while pretending we're together. What do you want instead?" "I want all of it. The messy, complicated, sometimes scary reality of building a life with someone." He pulled a small box from his pocket, and Megan's breath caught. "I want to marry you, Megan Foster. I want to wake up next to you every morning and know that you chose me, chose this, with full knowledge of what it means." He opened the box. The ring inside was beautiful, simple, elegant, nothing ostentatious. Exactly her style. "I bought this 8 years ago," Anthony said quietly. "The week before I left. I was going to propose, ask you to marry me even though I knew it was too soon, too fast. Then I found out about Victor, and I put it in a safe instead." He looked at her. "I've been carrying it around for 3 months now, waiting for the right moment. But I realize there's no perfect moment. There's just now. Us. This." Megan's eyes were burning with tears. "You really bought it 8 years ago?" "I really did. I've always known you were it for me. I just had to wait until I could actually keep you. So ask me. Actually ask me." Anthony got down on one knee right there on the pier, in the cold, with tourists probably watching. "Megan Foster, will you marry me? Will you take on my world, my complications, my damage, and let me take on yours? Will you build something real with me?" "Yes." The word came out choked with tears. "Yes, absolutely yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, of course, and stood, pulling her into a kiss that made the cold disappear. People around them applauded, but Megan barely heard them. All she could hear was her own heartbeat and Anthony's whispered promises against her lips. 6 months later, they stood in that same restaurant where it all started. La Colline, exorcised of its ghosts, surrounded by the small group of people they loved. Carol was there, proud and tearful. Sarah with her husband and baby. Marco and David and Vincent, Anthony's family of choice. Even Rosa, who'd helped Megan plan this day. The ceremony was simple. No religion, no elaborate production. Just 2 people promising to try, to fight, to stay, even when it got hard. When the officiant pronounced them married, Anthony kissed her like he'd been waiting his whole life to do it. And maybe he had been. At the reception, Carol pulled Megan aside. "You look happy," she said. "I am happy, terrified, but happy." "Good. That's how it should be. Love should scare you a little, means it matters." Carol hugged her daughter. "Your father would have liked him, would have appreciated a man willing to fight for you. I think Dad would have punched him first, then liked him." Probably true. Later, as the party wound down, Megan and Anthony stood by the windows overlooking the city. His arm was around her waist, her head on his shoulder. Comfortable. Easy. "Right. No regrets?" Anthony asked. "A few, but none about this. About us." Megan looked up at him. "You?" "Just one. That I wasted 8 years we could have had together. We weren't ready 8 years ago. We are now." "You really believe that?" "I have to. Otherwise, all the pain was for nothing." Megan turned to face him fully. "But I do believe it. I think we had to break to figure out how to be whole. Had to lose each other to understand what we had." Anthony pulled her close. "I love you, Mrs. Rossi. I love you too. Even if you are a dramatic bastard who sends mysterious invitations instead of just calling like a normal person. Where's the fun in normal? There is no fun in normal. That's kind of the point of normal." They laughed, and it felt good. Felt like hope, like future, like all the things they'd almost lost but somehow found again. The party ended. Guests departed. Eventually, it was just the 2 of them in the quiet restaurant, sitting at the same table where this had all begun. "What are you thinking about?" Megan asked. That this is where I told you the truth, where I dragged you back into my world, where everything changed. Anthony took her hand, played with the wedding ring, now sitting beside the engagement ring. And somehow, impossibly, you're still here. Where else would I be? Safe, happy, living a normal life with someone who doesn't have a body count. Normal's overrated. I tried it. Was miserable. Megan smiled. This is better. Harder. Definitely scarier, but better. Even knowing what you know, what I've done, what I might have to do again? Even knowing. You're not your worst moments, Anthony. You're also the man who bought a ring 8 years ago and kept it even when he thought he'd never get to use it. You're the man who protected me by destroying us both. You're the man who's trying every day to be better than what you were born into. She leaned across the table, kissed him. I see all of you, the darkness and the light, and I choose all of it. They sat there for a while longer talking about small things. Plans for a honeymoon, maybe Europe, maybe just staying home and pretending the rest of the world didn't exist. What to do with the apartment, with the gallery, with the careful balance they were building. Eventually, they stood to leave. Anthony held her coat, helped her into it like she was something precious. They walked out into the night together, hands linked, facing whatever came next as partners instead of protector, and protected. The city lights glittered around them, and Megan thought about that first night. How she'd almost thrown away the invitation. How close she'd come to choosing safety over truth. She was glad she hadn't. Glad she'd walked into that restaurant and demanded answers. Glad she'd chosen the dangerous, complicated man over the easy path. Because sometimes the only way to find yourself is to lose everything you thought you needed. Sometimes you have to break before you can heal. Sometimes love means choosing someone not despite their darkness, but because you see the light they're fighting to find. And sometimes after 8 years of questions and pain and distance, you get a second chance. Not to erase what came before, but to build something new from the ruins. Megan had taken that chance, had gambled everything on a man and a love that should have stayed buried in the past. And as they drove through the city toward their shared apartment, toward their shared life, toward a future that was uncertain, but theirs, she knew she'd made the right choice. Not the safe choice, not the easy choice, but hers. Freely made, fully owned. And in the end, that was all that mattered.